Chapter 1423, The Four Supreme Doctrine, 9 Divine God Doctrine. Chapter 1423, The Four Supreme Doctrine, 9 Divine God Doctrine. The news about Jian Wushuang returning to Lineage of Star stirred a commotion in Lineage of Star. Jian Wushuang had suddenly came across a thunder test during the battle. Many disciples made guesses that Jian Wushuang should be going through his God's test in the third heaven. Then, when Jian Wushuang had returned to Lineage of Star, his aura obviously went through a drastic change. Because of the treasure that the founder of Lineage of Star had bestowed on him, Jian Wushuang was obviously giving out an aura of a universe god in the third heaven. Hence, the news of Jian Wushuang had passed through God's test in the third heaven, and the news that he had become a universe god in the third heaven spread across the entire Lineage of Star like wildfire. There weren't many universe god in the third heaven in Lineage of Star. Universe god in the third heaven who were disciples of Star Palace were even rarer. Jian Wushuang passed through the buildings and arrived before a golden palace with an imposing aura. At the entrance of the golden palace, there was an engraving of a real god pavilion. Real god pavilion. Looking at the golden palace with its imposing aura, Jian Wushuang lifted the corners of his mouth and walked forward. There was a white-haired elderly who sat at the entrance of the golden palace. The white-haired elderly had his eyes closed like an old monk in meditation. Elderly. Jian Wushuang bowed slightly at the white-haired elderly. The white-haired elderly slowly opened his eyes and took a glance at Jian Wushuang with his murky eyes. Jian Wushuang? The white-haired elderly had gone to watch the battle previously and he had seen Jian Wushuang's magnificent performance. Oh, you became a universe god in the third heaven? The white-haired elderly fixed his gaze on him. Elderly, I'd like to go into Real God Hall, Jian Wushuang said straightforwardly. You are a universe god in the third heaven and also a disciple of Star Palace, you are qualified to enter. However, I have to remind you that it isn't easy to open the Real God Hall every time. The price to pay is terrifyingly high too. Even a disciple of Star Palace only has one chance to enter for free. To enter for a second time, one would be required to complete a training task and receive an additional grant, the white-haired elderly said. I see. Jian Wushuang creased his eyebrows. He never knew about this before. You can give further thought as to whether you want to enter now, the white-haired elderly said with a smile as he waited for Jian Wushuang's answer. Jian Wushuang hesitated for a short while before he came to a conclusion. My ultimate disciple task will come in another 100 years. Once I have completed my ultimate disciple task, I will receive an additional grant. By then I will have a chance to enter the Real God Pavilion again. Jian Wushuang smiled faintly and said, Elderly, I shall enter now. Alright, I will open it for you. You can enter directly. Remember, you can only stay in Real God Hall for 1 month during each visit. In that month, you should appreciate your time and not waste the opportunity, the white-haired elderly exhorted. Jian Wushuang nodded faintly. After the white-haired elderly opened the door to enter Real God Hall, he took a huge stride into Real God Hall. It was a vast starry sky. Jian Wushuang stood right in the middle of the starry sky and looked around suspiciously. Real God Hall, the most precious land of opportunities on Lineage of Star. What kind of opportunities are there here? Jian Wushuang was curious. Just then, there was a huge, tempestuous river that appeared at the end of the starry sky, and it was soaring towards him at a terrifying speed. The river flowed so swiftly that Jian Wushuang didn't manage to respond in time but was swallowed entirely. In the depths of the river, Jian Wushuang couldn't feel any impact and could only feel a unique strength from all direction. This is? Jian Wushuang was astonished. He could tell that the huge river was formed by these unique strengths. The unique strengths, Jian Wushuang couldn't determine what they were. Such incredible strength. Jian Wushuang extended his hand and touched the river water that was formed by the unique strengths. He couldn't see or touch the strengths, he could only feel them. These strengths, some I am familiar with but most of them are very new to me. What are they? Jian Wushuang creased their eyebrows. Just then, King of Venomous Worms suddenly spoke. Jian Wushuang, the strength that you can feel now is the purest and also the strongest power in eternal chaotic world. Its births and heaven ways exist in the cycle of heaven ways. It is power of heaven way. Heaven way. Jian Wushuang stared. Heaven way is the beginning of all living things in the universe. Eternal chaotic world that we are in, the 10 cultivation sanctuaries, to the next eternal world or even Ian's world, they are all nurtured by Heaven Way. The cycle of Heaven Way was formed by 13 types of strengths in total. King of Venomous Worms explained. These power of Heaven Way are shrouded in mystery. They are extremely fierce. Many cultivators in eternal chaotic world are dying to get the fierce power of Heaven Way. Hence, there are cultivators who have tried to comprehend the power of Heaven Way, which then derived the process of the Four Supreme Doctrine, 9 Divine God Doctrine. The cultivators in eternal chaotic world, through comprehension of the Four Supreme Doctrine, 9 Divine God Doctrine with the aid of power of Heaven Way, could release even stronger and more impressive power. However, because the power of Heaven Way is too mysterious, only experts above the level of real God are qualified to comprehend under normal circumstance. As for Universe God, any ordinary Universe God isn't qualified to comprehend such strength. Only some true geniuses or incredible existences could try to comprehend one of the doctrines after they become Universe God in the third heaven. It is extremely rare. I reckon that there shouldn't be many in the entire eternal chaotic world. Jian Wushuang, do you still remember the genius, Duan Lingfeng, that you met on Ancient Star Sea back then? I told you that you met the real genius then. The reason why I said so was that I could tell that he already understood Massacre Doctrine in the 9 Heaven God Doctrine. Duan Lingfeng? Jian Wushuang couldn't help but think of the genius that he was friends with in Ancient Star Sea. Back then, King of Venomous Worms had said that Duan Lingfeng took the step. Jian Wushuang didn't understand the step that King of Venomous Worms was talking about. But then he understood. It turned out that Duan Lingfeng was a super genius who comprehended the power of Heaven Way when he was just a universe god. Back when we saw Duan Lingfeng, he had just passed his god's test in the third heaven. But his comprehension of Massacre Doctrine was extremely high. In other words, he had already understood a slight bit of Massacre Doctrine when he was a universe god in the second heaven. A genius like him was hard to find, even in the 10 cultivation sanctuaries. King of Venomous Worms continued. Chapter 1424, Reincarnation Doctrine. Chapter 1424, Reincarnation Doctrine. Jian Wushuang was even more amazed by Duan Lingfeng's talent after he heard what King of Venomous Worms said. In eternal chaotic world, universe gods in the third heaven who could comprehend a slight bit of power of Heaven Way could be considered as a monster among monsters. There weren't many of them. However, Duan Lingfeng understood a slight bit of Massacre Doctrine when he was only a universe god in the second heaven. No wonder King of Venomous Worms had complimented him back then. The Supreme Four Doctrine, the 9 Heaven God Doctrine, either one of them would be extremely difficult to grasp. However, Lineage of Star lives up to its name of Overlord in Purple Moon Sanctuary. They made great efforts to create a river solely with the power of Heaven Way. The river of Heaven Way included the Supreme Four Doctrine, the 9 Heaven God Doctrine. When you're in the river, you can feel these powers of Heaven Way clearly. The clearer you can feel them, the easier you will be able to comprehend them. The real God Hall deserves to be the most precious land of opportunities in Lineage of Star. It's too useful. The King of Venomous Worms sounded surprised. Obviously, even with his broadness of vision, he had never seen such great effort and such an amazing place for comprehension of the power of Heaven Way. Jian Wushuang, the real God Hall has an unforeseeable benefit to you. You only have a month's time. Don't waste it. Use the time to understand, King of Venomous Worms said in a hushed voice. Jian Wushuang nodded. He had found out the existence of the Supreme Four Doctrine and the 9 Heaven God Doctrine. After Jian Wushuang had found out that Duan Lingfeng took the leap because he comprehended a slight bit of Massacre Doctrine, he yearned for the power of Heaven Way. But Real God Hall was the best place to comprehend the power of Heaven Way. It shouldn't be missed. In the river that was made up of the power of Heaven Way, Jian Wushuang sat down. He closed his eyes and felt the power of Heaven Way surrounding him. Jian Wushuang felt that parts of the power of Heaven Way were extremely familiar. The strength should be the power of space, right? Jian Wushuang felt one of the strengths. That was the strength that made him feel extremely familiar. One should know that one of the 3 strongest sword principle that Jian Wushuang opened up was the spacetime sword principle, and it involved the power of spacetime. He understood the power of spacetime to a certain level, but it had not involved Heaven Way yet. But then he felt the power of spacetime in the river of Heaven Way. Spacetime Doctrine was one of the 4 Supreme Doctrine. Out of the 4 Supreme Doctrine and the 9 Heaven God Doctrine, the former is slightly longer and more difficult to understand. The latter is the reverse. However, overall, it isn't much different. Jian Wushuang, if you were to find that you were more familiar with the power of spacetime, it would mean that you're more suitable to comprehend this doctrine, but not those that you don't find familiar. You will find it rather difficult to comprehend them. the king of venomous worms' voice was heard in Jian Wushuang's head. Understood, Jian Wushuang nodded faintly. If merely based on intimacy, I feel that there are two heaven ways that I found closest to me. One is spacetime doctrine while the other unique strength should belong to reincarnation doctrine. Reincarnation doctrine, it involved reincarnation. Among the three strongest sword principles that Jian Wushuang had opened up, there was a reincarnation doctrine. Besides, the most important part was that he had just passed his second inverse cultivation test and had experienced the 9 lives reincarnation test. He had just experienced the 9 lives reincarnation test and his understanding of reincarnation was beyond anyone's comparison. Then, he could feel the surrounding power of reincarnation and he realized that he was comprehending the reincarnation doctrine. He found it even easier than the spacetime doctrine. The 4 supreme doctrine and the 9 divine God doctrine, the easiest should be the reincarnation doctrine, Jian Wushuang smiled. If so, what are you waiting for? In this 1 month, seize the time and spend all your effort in understanding the reincarnation doctrine. As for the spacetime doctrine and the others, you can put them aside for now, King of Venomous Worms said. Jian Wushuang nodded as he understood himself. He could only enter Real God Hall once and he could only stay for 1 month on each visit. Hence, the time was extremely precious. If he were to be distracted and try to comprehend both reincarnation and spacetime doctrine at the same time, 1 month would obviously be insufficient. He might as well focus entirely on reincarnation doctrine only. In Real God Hall, Jian Wushuang had already started comprehending the doctrine wholeheartedly. Reincarnation. The combination of yin and yang, the life and death cycle, it is reincarnation. Half a month flew past. It's done. Jian Wushuang sat in Real God Hall and he suddenly opened his eyes. There was excitement in his eyes. Along with a clap of his hands, a unique strength slowly gathered. The strength, it was the power of reincarnation. Reincarnation doctrine, beginner? King of Venomous Worms found it unbelievable. How could it be so easy? King of Venomous Worms was astonished. King of Venomous Worms, didn't you say it would be extremely difficult to understand the power of Heaven Way? But why? Jian Wushuang was surprised too. He never thought that he could understand the reincarnation doctrine so quickly and so easily. In just half a month's time, he had mastered a slight bit of power of reincarnation. Although the power of reincarnation was weak, Jian Wushuang had actually become a beginner on reincarnation doctrine. Luck? King of Venomous Worms complimented. Back when you opened up reincarnation sword principle, you already possessed the basis of comprehending reincarnation doctrine. However, you're lucky that you happened to experience 9 lives reincarnation test during your second inverse cultivation test. After you experienced 9 lives reincarnation test, your understanding of reincarnation was far beyond anyone else's. Besides, you're in Real God Hall and you get to feel the power of reincarnation clearly. Most importantly, you are a quick learner. Thanks to all of that, you comprehended 1 bit of power of reincarnation within half a month. Half a month. TSK. If the others were to find out that it only took you half a month from getting in touch with Heaven Way to mastering the power of reincarnation, they would definitely be jealous. One must know, in eternal chaotic world, there were many real gods that spent a long time and invested great effort but couldn't grasp the power of Heaven Way. Well, comparing one to another does piss people off. Hearing King of Venomous Worms' compliment, Jian Wushuang smiled. I just mastered a slight bit of power of reincarnation and I am considered only a beginner in reincarnation doctrine, but there is a space for improvement. For the remaining half of a month, I have to use the time to improve the mastery of power of reincarnation, Jian Wushuang thought and continued to comprehend the doctrine. The 1 month time limit was over really soon. Chapter 1425, 4 Secret Skills of Lineage of Star. Chapter 1425. 4 Secret Skills of Lineage of Star. Phew. Jian Wushuang let out a breath as he walked out of the Real God Hall. Jian Wushuang, how did it go? The white-haired elderly outside Real God Hall casually asked. Not bad, Jian Wushuang smiled as he replied. In actual fact, his visit to Real God Hall was better than not bad. With the aid Real God Hall, he had mastered a slight bit of power of reincarnation and become a beginner of reincarnation doctrine. What he achieved was definitely something countless real gods would be jealous of. Then Jian Wushuang walked towards Scripture Depository. In Scripture Depository. Elderly, Jian Wushuang looked at the deacon elderly who was guarding in Scripture Depository. Jian Wushuang. The deacon elderly took a glance at Jian Wushuang. If I'm not mistaken, you have yet to pass the 3rd floor of Star Tower. Yes, Jian Wushuang nodded. However, I have passed Illusionary Mind C's 19th floor. Hall Master Yuan said that I am qualified to cultivate the 2nd secret skill. I see. The deacon elderly understood and immediately pointed at the 4 secret rooms behind him. These 4 secret rooms, each room has a secret skill. You already cultivated the secret skill of Star Palace, so you can skip the first room on the left. Out of the remaining 3 secret rooms, you can choose whichever one you like. Jian Wushuang immediately walked before the 3 secret rooms. There were descriptions about the secret skill in the secret room at the entrance of each door. The 2nd secret room was Supreme Heaven that Ling Feibai cultivated. Supreme Heaven transformed one into demonic god and one's power would increase tremendously in a short period of time. The secret skill was of a high level. However, similarly, the cultivation threshold was terrifyingly high. Plus, Supreme Heaven was actually using an extremely unique power of bloodline. He himself was already a cultivator who possessed power of bloodline. Hence, he was destined to be unable to cultivate it. Supreme Heaven, although it is extremely fierce, I already possess ancient god blood. That means I have the prerequisites to cultivate it. Jian Wushuang sighed. Back when Ling Fengbai performed Supreme Heaven at the crucial moment, he had been envious of the terrifying power that he showed. Previously he had made a decision. If he were to also have a chance to cultivate the secret skill. However, the opportunity was before him but he couldn't cultivate it. Jian Wushuang shook his head and walked towards the 3rd secret room. In the 3rd secret room was an extremely powerful secret skill of defense. It was called Shen Mie Golden Body. Secret skill of defense? Jian Wushuang was intrigued. His divine body was originally far stronger than cultivators of the same level and once cultivated secret skill of defense. However, it was Golden Image secret skill from Greenfire World. Although the Golden Image secret skill was quite decent and had provided great assistance to Jian Wushuang previously, Jian Wushuang grew more powerful and the Golden Image secret skill barely met his standards. Plus, the Shen Mie Golden Body that was before him, as one of the 4 secret skills in Lineage of Star, was definitely one of the top secret skills of defense. To Jian Wushuang, such a secret skill of defense was very useful. Jian Wushuang, when you wander an eternal chaotic world and want to gain a foothold in 10 cultivation sanctuaries and gradually come to prominence, the most important thing to do is to save your own life. As long as you're alive, everything is possible. The defense power is naturally crucial. I have heard of Shen Mie Golden Body before. It is really a powerful secret skill of defense. The secret skill is such that a universe god in the 3rd heaven is barely qualified to cultivate this secret skill. Plus, once it's refined, even if one is only a beginner, his divine body of universe god in the 3rd heaven would be enhanced tremendously. He could even be compared favorably to a real god. King of Venomous Worms said. Jian Wushuang was shocked. As long as a universe god in the 3rd heaven became a beginner in Shen Mid Golden Body, his divine body could be compared favorably with a real god's. So impressive. It seems that Shen Mie Golden Body is really a great choice for me. However, there's no rush. I shall see what the last secret skill is before I make a decision. Jian Wushuang smiled and then came to the 4th secret room, which was also the last secret room. Jian Wushuang fixed his gaze on the description of the last secret skill before the 4th secret room. The last secret skill, it was called Secret Skill of Dragon Blood. What? Jian Wushuang was shocked when he saw the name itself. Then he continued to read the simple introduction about the secret skill. Suddenly Jian Wushuang's gaze became strange. The last secret skill among the 4 secret skill in Lineage of Star was the secret skill of Dragon Blood which he had cultivated long ago. Exactly the same. The secret skill of Dragon Blood was passed on to him by his master Shen Yi, in order to protect his life during crucial times. The secret skill had saved him countless times. He also knew that the secret skill was extraordinary. Previously, merely by igniting his soul power, his speed would increase by 100 folds under the eruption of power. Then he became universe god and possessed divine power. Once his divine power ignited, his speed would be even faster, even more furious. But after he became a universe god, there was never such a life and death situation. Hence, he had yet to perform the technique with his all in eternal chaotic world. But Jian Wushuang never thought that the secret skill of Dragon Blood that his master taught him would be one of the 4 secret skills of Lineage of Star. The 4 secret skills in Lineage of Star are commonly entrusted to the person's memory directly, and the person wouldn't be able to pass it on to someone else. In other words, the 4 secret skills should be leaked. However, your mysterious master possesses this secret skill and passed it on to you. Hee, so interesting, King of Venomous Worms laughed. Jian Wushuang had a strange look on his face. He didn't know how his master got the secret skill of dragon blood. However, the techniques that he performed were unfathomable. He could never figure him out. I never thought that I had actually already cultivated 2 of the secret skills in Lineage of Star, Jian Wushuang blinked. The secret skill of Star Palace and the secret skill of Dragon Blood were both secret skills in Lineage of Star. However, as the secret skill of Star Palace possessed the power of Star, the higher-ups in Lineage of Star could tell that he had cultivated it before. However, no one could tell that he could do the secret skill of Dragon Blood. Even experts like Hall Master Yuan and Lei Chao, or even founder of Lineage of Star, if Jian Wushuang didn't proactively perform it, they wouldn't know that Jian Wushuang had cultivated the secret skill long ago. Hence, he was given the chance to visit Scripture Depository to choose the second secret skill. In actual fact, he should be choosing the third secret skill. Whatever, the secret skill of Dragon Blood was passed on to me by my master. I didn't get it from Lineage of Star. Jian Wushuang shrugged and went into the third secret room. Of the 4 secret skills, there were 2 that he had already cultivated and there was 1 that he couldn't cultivate. Hence, he was only left with 1 choice. The secret skill was Shenmie Golden Body. Chapter 1426, Star Pavilion. Chapter 1426, Star Pavilion. In the secret room, Jian Wushuang stood alone. In front of him, there was a bead that gave out deep and serene light. Under the cover of Jian Wushuang's soul power, there was suddenly a wealth of information that surged towards him. The information was, shockingly, the cultivation method of Shenmie Golden Body. It was imprinted in his head via inheritance. Shenmie Golden Body, there was 3 volumes in total. The very first volume itself required one to be a universe god in the 3rd heaven to qualify for cultivation. After the first volume, the divine body of a universe god in the 3rd heaven could be compared favorably to a real god. The Shenmie Golden Body is really strong, but the threshold of cultivation is extremely high. Just the first volume itself would require one to be a universe god in the 3rd heaven, and it would require the assistance of 9 types of bloodline powers in order to succeed. Jian Wushuang squinted his eyes. Although he was only a universe god in the 2nd heaven, as an inverse cultivator, regardless of if it was divine power or divine body, he could be compared favorably with a universe god in the 3rd heaven. He could just about reach the first requirement. However, for the second requirement, there were 9 types of bloodline power, and the higher level they were, the better. Jian Wushuang didn't have that then. Jian Wushuang, you only need to know the cultivation method. As for the 9 types of bloodline power, it's easy. The assistance of 9 types of bloodline power is nothing but some blood from a strong bloodline. Although you don't have them, they are sold in the market outside. They are not rare. From what I have estimated, as long as one can assemble 9 types of first-rate bloodlines blood, it will be more than enough to cultivate Shenmie Golden Body, King of Venomous Worms said. In Eternal Chaotic World, there were quite a number of clans with unique bloodlines. These bloodline clans were divided into strong and weak too. The weakest was a 3rd-rate bloodline clan, followed by a 2nd-rate bloodline clan. The 1st-rate bloodline clan was an extremely ferocious and unruly clan in Eternal Chaotic World. Of course, like Jian Wushuang's ancient god bloodline, it was at the peak of Eternal Chaotic World. It already exceeded the 1st-rate bloodline clan's coverage. It belonged to the peak of the bloodline clan. I understand, Jian Wushuang nodded slowly. After he had memorized the 3 volumes of Shenmie Universe God Cultivation Method, Jian Wushuang left Scripture Depository. In the Sword Star where Jian Wushuang was staying. Xiao Yu, how have you been over the 10 years that I've not been around? Jian Wushuang looked down. Mister, your performance during the battle 10 years ago shocked everyone. All the disciples in Lineage of Star revered you and no one dared to bully us maids and servants from Sword Star. Even when we had some conflict, the moment we brought up Sword Star, those servants in Lineage of Star or even the ordinary disciples would be courteous enough to not find trouble with us, Xiao Yu said. That's great, Jian Wushuang nodded faintly and asked, Xiao Yu, you're a universe god in the 3rd heaven. You have stayed in Star Land for so many years and you definitely have rich experience. I need some blood of the first-rate bloodline. Do you know where I can find it? The blood of first-rate bloodline clan? Xiao Yu was stunned, then continued, There's Star Pavilion under the Lineage of Star. It can be found all over Star Land. They sell various kinds of rare treasures. It naturally includes blood of some bloodline clan. Master can pay them a visit. Star Pavilion? Jian Wushuang nodded faintly. Then Jian Wushuang departed that very day. Jian Wushuang shot from the boundlessness towards the busiest city, Snake Soul City. Star Pavilion was located in Snake Soul City. It was located in a busy city that was full of experts. Jian Wushuang came before the Star Pavilion directly. This is Star Pavilion. It looks rather magnificent. Jian Wushuang looked at the huge, delicate pavilion that was about 9 floors high in astonishment. Although Star Pavilion could be compared favorably to Vientiane Tower, which was the top one in the 10 cultivation sanctuaries, it could be considered as the top store in Starland. There were many treasures collected here. In Star Pavilion, in a private, secret room, an elderly in purple robes stood before Jian Wushuang. The elderly in purple robes had an imposing aura. He was a real god. However, the real god behaved rather politely towards Jian Wushuang. Mr. Jian Wushuang, I wonder what I can do for you. The elderly in purple robes smiled. Although he was a real god, he was just an expert outside of Lineage of Star. He was naturally polite when he came across the disciples from Star Palace, which was located in the core of Lineage of Star. I need some blood of a first-rate bloodline clan, Jian Wushuang stated straightforwardly. There are many kinds of first-rate bloodline clans. I wonder which clans does the master want and how much of them? The elderly in purple robe asked. As long as it's a first-rate bloodline clan, any will do. The clans don't matter. As for volume, please give me 3 drops of each, Jian Wushuang said. During the process of cultivating Shenmie Golden Body, if everything were to go smoothly, it would only require a drop of blood from the 9 different bloodline clans. However, just in case, Jian Wushuang prepared 3 drops of each. Every drop of first-rate bloodline clan's blood costs 500,000 chaos gems. You wanted 9 types of bloodline, 3 drops of each type. It is a total of 27 drops. In total, it would require 13,500,000 chaos gems. The elderly in purple robes smiled. So expensive? Jian Wushuang was shocked. 13,500,000 chaos gem was much higher than many peak universe god in the third heaven's entire properties. Expensive? The elderly in purple robes smiled. Everyone knows that not only is the first-rate bloodline clan's blood rare, but it is also widely used. Hence, its value is naturally high. Plus, as you're a disciple from Star Palace, you are able to buy a drop of first-rate bloodline clan's blood at the price of 500,000. If it were to be anyone else, it would cost 1 million for a drop. Is that so? Jian Wushuang was lost for words. He waved and took out the Chen Kuan ring. I don't have so many chaos gems and I can only offer these treasures instead. Can you see how much these treasures cost? The elderly in purple robes nodded. He took over the chaos gems and started calculating. Very quickly there was a result. Mister, the treasures in this Chen Kuan ring are valued at a total of about 8 million chaos gems, the elderly in purple robe replied. Only worth this much? Jian Wushuang creased his eyebrows. The Chen Kuan ring that he took out contained the items that he had kept from the years where he had killed others. Could be said that 99% of his treasures were in the Chen Kuan ring. He never thought that it would only be worth 8 million. It was still quite far away from the 13,500,000 chaos gems required. Chapter 1427, Auction. Chapter 1427, Auction. I have a few treasures. Take a look. Jian Wushuang took out another Chen Kuan ring. There were merely a few treasures in the Chen Kuan ring and they were the most precious few that Jian Wushuang accumulated for all the years. Among them, there were 2 that he had got from Beixiu and Tianling Mystery Land. The elderly in purple robe briefly went through them and replied, Mister, these few treasures are valued at 5 million chaos gems. Jian Wushuang creased his eyebrows. He had already taken out all his treasures that he had accumulated and he had only kept those that he could use. In the end, he was short of 500,000 chaos gem. Jian Wushuang, you're so dumb, King of Venomous Worms suddenly spoke. Those first-rate bloodline clans' blood essence are so precious and you own the royal ancient god's blood essence which is higher than those first-rate bloodline clans' blood. Wouldn't your blood be more valuable than the first-rate bloodline clans' blood? My blood essence? Jian Wushuang was stunned and then understood. He used his willpower and a drop of dark gold blood essence appeared in his palm. The drop of blood essence was the ancient god blood that he had accumulated for the past few years. Although he was an ancient god, it wasn't easy to accumulate ancient god blood essence. For the past few years he had accumulated 3 drops in total. The 3 drops could be used at a crucial time. Then he took 1 drop out. Look, the drop of blood essence, how much is it worth? Jian Wushuang passed his ancient god blood essence over. The elderly in purple robe took the blood essence and examined carefully. At first, the elderly in purple robe was calm. Very soon, his facial expression was replaced with an unprecedented terror. This is ancient god blood essence. And among the ancient god clans, the highest bloodline of all, the royal ancient god's blood essence. The elderly in the purple robe was astonished and he couldn't help but look at Jian Wushuang. It is really the royal ancient god's blood essence. Could you see how much is it worth? Jian Wushuang smiled. The elderly in the purple robe took a deep breath and suppressed the shock in him when he replied, the drop of royal ancient god's blood essence. The Star Pavilion would normally have the price of 15 million chaos gems. 15 million? Jian Wushuang was overjoyed. In order to cultivate Shen Mie Golden Body, he needed 9 types of bloodlines, at a total of 27 drops of blood essence. The value of 13,500,000 chaos gem couldn't even compare to his 1 single drop of blood essence. The drop of royal ancient god blood essence, if you were to sell to Star Pavilion directly, you can get 15 million chaos gem, but you could also opt to auction it out on the auction that is taking place 3 days later. You might be able to get more chaos gems then, the elderly in purple robe replied. Auction. Jian Wushuang was convinced. 3 days later, there will be a huge auction in Star Pavilion? Yes, the elderly in the purple robe nodded. Every once in a while we Star Pavilion hold an auction. There will be a huge number of unique treasures that appear during the auction. At the same time it will attract many experts. If you were to be interested, you can participate in the auction too. After all, the first-rate bloodline's blood essence that you requested will require a period of time to gather. As you have explained, I am now interested, Jian Wushuang smiled faintly. He had to wait for those first-rate bloodline clans' blood essence to arrive at Star Pavilion. He was free anyway, he might as well take a look at the auction. Then, put this drop of royal ancient god's blood essence up for auction. Besides, the few treasures that I gave you earlier, if possible, put them up for auction too, Jian Wushuang said. No problem, the elderly in the purple robe replied. Then Jian Wushuang waited for 3 days in Star Pavilion. 3 days later, the auction in Star Pavilion started. The auction in Star Pavilion in Snack Soul City was a huge event and it attracted many experts. Not only did it include a large number of universe gods, but there were even more than 20 real gods. Most of the real gods stayed in the independent rooms on the 2nd floor. In one of the rooms, Jian Wushuang sat in silence. Tianshi, you don't have to take care of the auction affairs? Jian Wushuang looked at the elderly in purple robe next to him. Tianshi. No, Tianshi shook his head and smiled. To him, the auction's affairs were not as important as Jian Wushuang's. After all, Jian Wushuang was a disciple of Star Palace and he was a universe god in the 3rd heaven. He was destined to be the higher-ups in Lineage of Star in the future, while Tianshi, who was only a real god outside the region. If he were to be on good terms with Jian Wushuang, it would be a great opportunity. Looking at Tianshi refusing, Jian Wushuang lifted his eyebrows but didn't push it. The auction below had started long ago. There were already 100 over treasures sold. Among the hundreds of treasures auctioned, there were some of high value and even treasures that would attract real gods. However, Jian Wushuang had yet to see any that were useful to him. Soon, it will be the royal ancient god's blood essence, Tianshi said. Jian Wushuang looked and he began to look forward to it. Very soon someone took the jade bottle up. The lady in red robe who was the host of the auction shouted, "Everyone, the treasure up for auction next value could be in the top 10 for this auction, and as for its rarity, it is definitely top. The treasure, if you were to miss it, I dare say that you might not have a chance to see it again." The lady in the red robe spoke and there was suddenly a commotion at the auction. The cultivators in the auction, including those real gods who had come for the auction, were excited. The lady in the red robe didn't blab further but quickly took out the dark gold blood essence from the jade bottle. The moment the drop of dark gold blood essence revealed itself, the universe gods who didn't know what was going on were calm in the open area. However, the real gods in the independent rooms on the 2nd floor were roaring from the bottom of their hearts. That is, Ancient God's Blood Essence. It is Ancient God's Blood Essence, and it is the top clan among Ancient Gods. The highest Royal Ancient God's Blood Essence. Oh my, the Royal Ancient God's Blood Essence is here in this auction. It's a pity that the drop of Royal Ancient God's Blood Essence power isn't too strong. If I'm not mistaken, its owner should only be a 5-starred Ancient God but yet to pass God's test to become a 6-starred Ancient God. Otherwise, the drop of Royal Ancient God's Blood Essence would be really impressive. I reckon many powerful real gods would be tempted. Even though it is only the blood essence of a 5-starred Royal Ancient God, it is still very rare. Chapter 1428, The Painting of Understanding Sword via Reincarnation. Chapter 1428, The Painting of Understanding Sword via Reincarnation. There were many gasps from the room. They were obviously preparing to bid. The lady in the red robe started the auction for the blood of a Royal Ancient God. The base price of the auction was already 10 million Chaos Gems. The base price itself was 10 million Chaos Gems. Isn't it too high? Jianghu creased his eyebrows and said, Mister, you belittled the rarity of the blood of Royal Ancient God. For such precious blood, even if the base price was 20 million, there would be people bidding for it, let alone the base price of 10 million. If there were to be someone who needed such blood, he would buy it no matter how high the price. Tianshi smiled. As expected, not long after the lady in the red robe had announced the base price, there were people bidding. 12 million Chaos Gem. 13 million. 15 million. Very soon, it exceeded the price that Star Pavilion offered and it continued to soar. In the end, there was a real god in the private room on the second floor who bought the drop of Royal Ancient God blood for the price of 23 million Chaos Gems. 23 million Chaos Gems? Jianghu eyes were beaming with joy. From what he knew, an ordinary real god's entire property was about 40 million Chaos Gems. 23 million Chaos Gems were already half of a real god's entire property. It's a pity that it isn't easy to accumulate Ancient God blood. I only accumulated 3 drops over such a long period of time. If it were easy, I would like to get a few more drops to auction off. Jianghu smiled. Then the auction continued. Jianghu glanced at the treasures that were auctioned but almost nobody made any offer. 2 days later. The next treasure that is up for auction is extremely unique. In terms of value at this auction it could be in the top 3. The lady in the red robe spoke and every cultivator at the auction suddenly looked over. The auction in Star Pavilion didn't tend to save the best for last. Those previous treasures appeared randomly as they wanted. The treasure that was going to be up for auction then was obviously one of the most precious treasures in the auction. The lady in red robe took out the treasures. It was a scroll painting. It had yet to be opened but it had a terrifying sword intention that dispersed. Ha! Jianghu, who was in the private room, saw the scroll painting and he immediately squinted. He was interested in any treasure that was related to sword principle. The scroll painting was obviously related to sword principle. The lady in the red robe continued to speak. Everyone, as you're wandering in Starland, I believe that there should be many of you who have heard of a real god named Jianghu. Real god Jianghu? Real god Jianghu who fell 6 million years ago? Hearing real god Jianghu's name, many real gods in the private rooms revealed a surprised look. Real god Jianghu? Jianghu creased his eyebrows. He had just got to Starland not long ago so he naturally had never heard of real god Jianghu. Then Tianshi by his side spoke. Real god Jianghu was once the real god experts on the peak of Starland. His fame was not only in Starland but throughout the entire 10 cultivation sanctuaries. When he was still alive he occupied a space in the real god ranking list. Real god ranking? Jianghu moved. He didn't know much about real gods. He never knew how to differentiate the power between real gods. But he knew about the real god ranking list. On the real god ranking list was gathered a bunch of top real gods in 10 cultivation sanctuaries. These real gods possessed a fighting power that could massacre a bunch of real gods easily. For example, Lei Chao from Lineage of Star was an expert on real god ranking list. And because of Lei Chao's strong power and his high position in Lineage of Star, he could even call Hall Master Yuan by his name. The other deacon elderlies in Lineage of Star would greet Hall Master Yuan politely. Noticing the commotion at the auction, the lady in the red robe smiled faintly. She immediately continued, The scroll painting for auction was the painting of Understanding Sword via Reincarnation that the real God expert formed with his understanding towards Reincarnation doctrine and his terrifying sword principle. The entire auction was in silence. The next moment, the crowd burst into an uproar. Swoosh! Jianghu, who was in private, stood up directly. There was a light that fixed on the scroll painting below. The painting of Understanding Sword via Reincarnation. To flawlessly merge Reincarnation doctrine with sword principle? This? Jianghu looked dumbfounded. He had just become a beginner in Reincarnation doctrine and mastered a slight bit of power of Reincarnation with the aid of real God Hall. Hence, it was a true sword principle cultivator and he was good at sword principle. It was because of the battle to become a disciple of Star Palace previously, and due to the press of time, even if he improved tremendously in sword principle, it would be very difficult for him to safeguard his position as a disciple of Star Palace. Hence, he had focused on soul attack for the past years. Regardless, Jianghu had a swordsman living in him. He was a born swordsman. Regardless of the improvement on his soul attack, he was still best at sword principle. Especially then, he had just become a beginner in Reincarnation doctrine and mastered a slight bit of power of Reincarnation. Then, what he needed the most was to merge his sword principle and the power of Reincarnation flawlessly, so that he could create an even stronger and more impressive unique skill. In turn, his understanding of sword principle increased tremendously. It was the most pressing matter for him. He had originally planned to cultivate the first volume of Xuemye Golden Body, then spend the rest of the time improving his swordsmanship. Who would ever have thought that the painting of Understanding Sword via Reincarnation, which merged Reincarnation doctrine with sword principle, would appear when he needed it the most? The painting of Understanding Sword via Reincarnation was simply tailor-made for him. Jianghu, you were just a universe god in the first heaven previously. You were in too low of a realm and you were restricted naturally. To be able to create an advanced rank 3 unique skill was already your limit. But now that you have broken through your realm and mastered a slight bit of power of Reincarnation, it means that you have removed your shackles. Your swordsmanship is in an eruption period. The eruption period is extremely hard to come by. If you were to get the aid of the painting of Understanding Sword via Reincarnation, you would prove to be even more amazing. So, for your power, get the painting of Understanding Sword via Reincarnation at any cost. King of Venomous Worm's voice rang in his head. I understand. Jianghu nodded faintly. He squinted his eyes as he held his fists tight. He knew how much help the painting of Understanding Sword via Reincarnation would be to him. He couldn't miss such a treasure. Chapter 1429, got it? Chapter 1429, got it? The painting of Understanding Sword via Reincarnation, the starting price is 20 million Chaos Gems. No increment should be lesser than 1 million. The auction starts now. The lady in the red robe announced straight away. The entire auction was suddenly bustling. The starting price is 20 million Chaos Gems? Jianghu face grew grave. One must know that his royal ancient god's blood essence was only 23 million Chaos Gems. 25 million Chaos Gems. 30 million Chaos Gems. Merely 2 bids had kicked the price of the painting of Understanding Sword via Reincarnation to 30 million Chaos Gems. Jianghu face instantly grew grave. The Chaos Gem I had earlier is allocated to purchase the first-rate Bloodline clan's blood essence. Now, I only have the 23 million Chaos Gems that I made from auctioning the drop of Royal Ancient God's blood essence. It is obviously not enough. Jianghu squinted his eyes. I still have another 2 drops of Royal Ancient God's blood essence. Even if I sold them to Star Pavilion, it'd only be worth 30 million Chaos Gems. Add it to the 23 million Chao Gem earlier. I have a total of 53 million. Jianghu was determined and he immediately shouted. 53 million Chaos Gem. Jianghu shouted the amount that he could pay straight away. From the original 30 million Chaos Gems, it suddenly got bumped up to 53 million. He was obviously determined to win. Soon after the price was shouted. 55 million Chaos Gems. There was another deep voice opposite Jianghu independent room. In that independent room, a cold-looking man who was more than 2 meters tall and brawny in size was seated. His eyes were twinkling with a gem-like brightness. I have reached the bottleneck of comprehension in Reincarnation doctrine. The painting of Understanding Sword via Reincarnation might be sufficient for me to break through the bottleneck. I don't care about just 50 over million Chaos Gems. The cold-looking man also seemed to be determined to win. When the price was overtaken, Jian Wushuang's eyebrows were tightly knitted and he felt helpless. If he were to shout another price he could pay it, but he would have to trade in his precious treasures in exchange, such as blood-killing plate armor, blood mountain sword and so on. These treasures were important to Jian Wushuang. He couldn't just give them up in exchange for other treasure. Just as Jian Wushuang was becoming deeply distressed, the elderly in the purple robe next to him, Tianshi, spoke. Mr. Jian Wushuang, you look like you really want to get the painting of understanding sword via reincarnation. Yes, Jian Wushuang didn't hide it. The painting of understanding sword via reincarnation is very useful to me. It's a pity that I can't fork our more chaos gems, otherwise. As long as you want it, we of Star Pavilion can figure it out for you, Tianshi said. Huh. Jian Wushuang looked towards Tianshi. Mister, don't forget that Star Pavilion is under the control of Lineage of Star and you are a disciple of Star Palace. Star Pavilion naturally has to provide you the greatest service. Tianshi smiled faintly. Mister, please hold on. Let me talk to Elderly Song about this. Elderly Song, the deacon elderly from Lineage of Star. Star Pavilions around Snake Soul City were all under the jurisdiction of Elderly Song. In just an instant, Mr. Elderly Song mentioned that you can transfer 1,000,000 Chaos Gem from Star Pavilion. Then pay it back slowly. If it were to be more than 1,000,000, you'll have to apply directly to Hall Master Yuan and receive approval from Hall Master Yuan, Tianshi said. 1,000,000 Chaos Gems? That's enough. Jian Wushuang was overjoyed and he quickly shouted, 60 million Chaos Gem. In the room opposite, the brawny cold-looking man creased his eyebrows and followed, 65 million. 70 million. Just as the cold-looking man called, Jian Wushuang shouted another price again. The moment he shouted the price, the auction gasped. 70 million was definitely an astronomical figure to a universe god. Even to a real god. Any ordinary real god would find it difficult to pay this amount of Chaos Gem. 70 million? The brawny cold-looking man grew distressed. Although the painting of understanding sword via reincarnation is precious, 70 million Chaos Gem isn't a small figure. The cold-looking man suddenly spoke after a moment of silence. I wonder which real god is opposite. I wonder if you could spare consideration to me and Yuan. And Yuan? It suddenly stirred a commotion at the auction. Real god and Yuan, it's him? Tianshi was shocked too. Real god and Yuan is very famous? Jian Wushuang looked at Tianshi. Quite famous, Tianshi nodded. He is from a great influence in Starland, the second elderly of the great influence. Not only does he possess great influence but his power is also impressive. It is beyond any ordinary real gods. He spoke now for you to reconsider. If you were an ordinary real god you might stop fighting over the painting with him. However, you are a disciple of Star Palace. Although real god and Yuan has a strong background, he's nothing to you. You can totally ignore him. Jian Wushuang raised his eyebrows. In Starland, Lineage of Star was the definite overlord. As a disciple of Star Palace, which was the core of Lineage of Star, he wasn't someone any ordinary real god could offend. Although real god and Yuan wouldn't dare to do anything to me, there's no need for me to offend him, Jian Wushuang smiled. Then he spoke, Real god and Yuan, I am Jian Wushuang from Star Palace. The painting of understanding sword via reincarnation is very useful to me. So excuse me. Jian Wushuang's voice reverberated at the auction and many gasped in surprise. Star Palace. Disciple of Star Palace. Disciple from the core of Lineage of Star, the genius of the geniuses, such a favored man has joined this auction too. Everyone was astonished. Even real god and Yuan was surprised. He's a disciple of Star Palace. Real god and Yuan muttered to himself as he shook his head, disciple of Star Palace, although his power might not be at my level now, once he grows, he is destined to be stronger than I am. I can't offend such a figure. Forget it, it isn't definite that the painting of understanding sword via reincarnation could help me break through the bottleneck. As the disciple of Star Palace wants it, I shall let him have it. Jian Wushuang, I give up the painting of understanding sword via reincarnation. Real god and Yuan said. Thank you. Jian Wushuang expressed his gratitude. Real god and Yuan didn't continue to fight with Jian Wushuang. Jian Wushuang got the painting of understanding sword via reincarnation with 70 million chaos gems. Chapter 1430 Battle. Chapter 1430, Battle. Then there were another 100 treasures up for auction before it ended. In the secret room. Mister, this is your painting of understanding sword via reincarnation. The elderly in a purple robe Tianshi sent the scroll painting to Jianghu Shuang. Mister, the blood that you needed, Star Pavilion has prepared them. You can come and collect them tomorrow. Very good, Jianghu Shuang nodded faintly. He was delighted. He could finally complete the first volume of Shenmue Golden Body and possess a divine body of a real god after he got the blood. With the aid of the painting of understanding sword via reincarnation, his power could definitely be improved to another level before the ultimate disciple task. Just then Tianshi suddenly moved and smiled. Mister, I have just received news. There will be a battle on the battlefield of Snake Soul City. If you have time you can come and take a look. Whose battle? Jianghu Shuang asked. 2 universe gods in the third heaven. One of them is Lin Shui, an extremely famous universe god in the third heaven on Starland. She's also one of the most outstanding disciples among disciples who are universe god in the third heaven from Dark Phoenix Pavilion. Hou, who she is challenging, isn't famous. He seems to have popped out from nowhere. However, he is very powerful. He defeated Lin Shui's Jr. with just 2 slashes of his axe, Tianshi said. Dark Phoenix Pavilion Lin Shui? Jianghu Shuang lifted his eyebrows. He had dealt with Dark Phoenix Pavilion before and he had also fought a few geniuses there before. But he had only visited Dark Phoenix Pavilion as universe god in the second heaven back then. Hence, he had only fought the disciples who were universe gods in the second heaven from Dark Phoenix Pavilion. As for disciples who were universe god in the third heaven, he didn't know them. However, judging by geniuses like Qiu Ling and Lu Shar who had fought with him, the disciples who were universe gods in the third heaven from Dark Phoenix Pavilion were outstanding. They were all true geniuses. A battle among geniuses. Jianghu Shuang was, of course, interested. Let's go and take a look, Jianghu Shuang smiled faintly. Under the guidance of Tianshi, Jianghu Shuang came to the biggest battlefield in Snake Soul City. The battlefield then was crowded. There were many cultivators in the city who were attracted by the battle. Jianghu Shuang and Tianshi found a seat and sat. They were looking at the 2 figures who had appeared on the battlefield. Among the 2 of them, the beautiful lady in a snow-white robe should be Lin Shui, who was a universe god in the third heaven from Dark Phoenix Pavilion. The one who stood opposite was a purple-haired young man in a crimson robe and he looked cold. The purple-haired young man was carrying an axe on his back. That's Hou. He wasn't famous at all previously, but the moment he appeared, he defeated a peak universe god in the third heaven easily, Tianshi said. During the fight, Jianghu Shuang watched attentively. Virum. There was a strong force of sword intention that flurried. There was suddenly snow falling on the battlefield. The snowflakes gathered and formed a huge snow dragon at one end. The snow dragon was terrifying. Then Hou slammed his axe. The moment the axe was revealed, the sky changed color and it was extremely imposing. These 2. Jianghu Shuang squinted the moment the 2 of them started the fight. Real god unique skills. The 2 of them created real god unique skills. Jianghu Shuang exclaimed in silence. Unique skills. Above rank 3 strongest unique skill was real god unique skill. Real god unique skill was similar to universe god unique skill and there were a few levels to it. Then, although Lin Shui and Hou were only performing an ordinary real god unique skill, it was much stronger than a universe god unique skill. They created a real god unique skill. They live up to their reputation, Jianghu Shuang complimented. Bang, 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 bang. The 2 of them on the battlefield were becoming white-hot. In terms of power, the 2 of them were obviously evenly matched. Their battle was naturally ferocious. Just then, rumble. A terrifying aura soared up from Lin Shui. Lin Shui is going to use her trump card. After all, as the core disciple of Dark Phoenix Pavilion, she of course has a trump card. Hou is going to be in trouble. On the battlefields, everyone was in discussion. Just as everyone thought Hou was going to lose. Wow. Something eye-catching suddenly appeared and Hou took out 2 axes and wielded them crazily. My god. This axe principle. Such a terrifying axe principle. Everyone was shocked at Hou's axe principle. Even Jianghu Shuang was surprised. It's so strong. The axe principle is so strong. Jianghu Shuang's hands were tightly clenched. He knew clearly that his sword principle was far behind Hou's axe principle. Too amazing. Although he had only created real god unique skill, his understand of Axe Principle was beyond everyone's imagination. After the shocking Axe Principle, although Lin Shui gave full play to her trump card, she couldn't resist and lost very quickly. You lost. Hou Yi held a huge axe with both of his hands as he looked at Lin Shui with soaring murderous intention. Lin Shui clenched her teeth, obviously unhappy with the result. Don't be upset with the result. You made me play the double axis trick and you did well. You could be considered the top among universe gods in the third heaven in Dark Phoenix Pavilion. Hou Yi sounded cold. I've made a deal with Lung Jun that we will have a fight 10 years later. Until I defeat him, you'll understand that it isn't shameful to lose to me. Hou Yi didn't lower his voice when he spoke. The people on the battlefield could hear him clearly. Suddenly it stirred a commotion. Lung Jun. Did he say Lung Jun just now? The super genius who is famous in Purple Moon Sanctuary, the expert on Universe God ranking list, Lung Jun. Countless cultivators were astonished. You wanted to challenge the Universe God ranking list. Of course, Hou Yi tightly gripped his hands as his eyes twinkled with joy. Then Lin Shui didn't look unhappy anymore. She knew that the person before her had the guts to challenge the Universe God ranking list. He definitely had absolute power to support him. His power naturally could easily defeat her. After the battle, Hou Yi and Lin Shui left, one after another. The battlefield was still in astonishment. In one of the corners of the battlefield, Jian Wushuang sat side by side with Tian Shi. The Universe God ranking list. There was light in Jian Wushuang's eyes as he muttered. He came to the 10 cultivation sanctuaries for 800 years, so he sort of knew bits and pieces about the 10 cultivation sanctuaries. He naturally knew about the Universe God ranking list and Real God ranking list that was spread through the 10 cultivation sanctuaries. Chapter 1431 Universe God ranking list. Chapter 1431 Universe God ranking list. Talents listed in the Real God ranking list were all the top genius Real God in the 10 cultivation sanctuaries who could easily slaughter a group of ordinary Real Gods. Like Lei Chao, he was on the list. The Universe God ranking list was similar. It gathered a group of top universe gods in the 10 cultivation sanctuaries. Without incomparable skills of the third heaven level, or overwhelmingly powerful strength, talents could never be listed in the Universe God ranking list. Like Lin Shui, who just fought with Hou Yi. She was the top genius of Dark Phoenix Pavilion's Universe God in the third heaven and had numerous skills, as well as unique skills for a real god, but she wasn't on the list. On the list, even the weakest one acquires extraordinary unique skills for real gods, which enables them to defeat a group of peak universe gods in the third heaven. And those who are even better are people who understand the power of Way of Heaven, including you. King of Venomous Worms said. Jian Wushuang understood. Anyone who had acquired the power of Way of Heaven was absolutely, incomparably powerful. The majority in the Universe God ranking list were incomparably powerful. The top 20 of the list were the best among the best. As for Lung Jun that Hou Yi had mentioned, he was only at the bottom. Hou Yi also knew that he himself was at the bottom, so he didn't dare to challenge those who were better than him. The lineage of Star is full of geniuses, and there are many gifted universe gods in the third heaven, but only 2 are on the list and not among the top. Jian Wushuang felt amazed. Only disciples from the Star Palace like Jian Wushuang could enter the Real God Palace for cultivation. And even if they were allowed to enter, not all talents could understand the power of Way of Heaven. Therefore, only 2 of the 5 disciples of the Star Palace could understand the power of the Way of Heaven, and they were both on the list. Jian Wushuang, now you have understood part of the reincarnation power. As long as you return to the Star Palace and use the painting of understanding sword via reincarnation to improve your swordsmanship, you should not be weaker than those in the list. King of Venomous Worms said. Jian Wushuang nodded. Indeed, not everyone on the list had acquired the power of the Way of Heaven. So when Jian Wushuang returned to the Star Palace and used the painting of understanding sword via reincarnation to improve his swordsmanship, and developed powerful unique skills, he could rival the talents on the list. He went back to the Star Pavilion and waited for a night. Tian Shi sent back the first-class blood essence to him the next day. Thank you very much, Jian Wushuang said. Then he returned directly to the Sword Star. Now he was sitting down in the Sword Star. Let's get started. After taking a deep breath, Jian Wushuang waved his hand, and 9 drops of blood were suspended in front of him. Subsequently, Jian Wushuang, according to the instruction of the Shen Mie Golden Body, began to practice the first volume. The process of cultivation was rather complicated and there were many steps. If there was just one mistake in these steps, all previous efforts would be discarded, and the 9 drops of blood would be wasted. Jian Wushuang was not anxious. Instead he did it step by step. 3 years had passed. Hum. With a muffled hum, Jian Wushuang opened his eyes, but then he frowned. Failed? Fortunately, I've prepared 3 copies of my blood. It's nothing to fail once. There are 2 more chances. With a faint smile, the sword has recovered and reached its peak, and he immediately began to practice for the second time. This second practice took 12 years. This time, although Jian Wushuang encountered some troubles in his practice, he passed through them one by one. The first volume of the Xianmie Golden Body has been finished. Jian Wushuang held his hands tightly and looked at his own divine body excitedly. He could clearly sense the strength of his own divine body. After he had passed the second inverse cultivation test, he got more powerful than a peak universe god in the 3rd heaven. And now, after finishing the first volume of the Xianmie Golden Body, his divine body had reached the level of a real god. Now, even without any other means of protecting the body, he could resist the attack of an ordinary peak universe god in the 3rd heaven with his own divine body. Don't forget, he still had the blood-killing plate armor. The defensive ability of the blood-killing plate armor, when combined with Jian Wushuang's divine body, could totally rival 1 to 2 real gods. King of Venomous Worms, you're right. For practitioners, the most important thing is the defending ability. Only with this ability can we resolve crisis after crisis and have the opportunity to constantly improve our strength. Now, I have Xianmie Golden Body and secret skill of Dragon Blood. I think few universe gods can rival me now. Jian Wushuang was full of confidence. His defensive ability was incomparable among universe gods. Even King of Venomous Worms admitted that. Now I have to find ways to improve my swordsmanship. Jian Wushuang then took out the Painting of Understanding Sword via Reincarnation. The Painting of Understanding Sword via Reincarnation was a perfect combination of incarnation and swordsmanship. Jian Wushuang unrolled the painting. Well, there are 9 patterns in this, the Painting of Understanding Sword via Reincarnation. These 9 patterns contain different skills and perceptions of reincarnation. Now, according to my swordsmanship, I can only understand the first 3 patterns. Without hesitation, Jian Wushuang began to study the first 3 patterns of the Painting of Understanding Sword via Reincarnation. Chapter 1432 Task Assigned. Chapter 1432 Task Assigned. Hall Master Yuan gave Jian Wushuang 100 years to prepare himself. In the past 100 years, besides the first 10 years that Jian Wushuang used to cultivate Xianmie Golden Body, he spent the rest of the time on comprehending the Painting of Understanding Sword via Reincarnation. On Sword Star swoosh, a figure suddenly descended. Jian Wushuang. The thick, deep voice was heard in every corner of Sword Star. The maids and servants on Sword Star immediately grew frightened, while Jian Wushuang, who was cultivating in the secret room, was frightened too. Hall Master Yuan. Jian Wushuang immediately appeared before Hall Master Yuan. How did your preparation go over the past 100 years? Hall Master Yuan looked at Jian Wushuang. Not bad, Jian Wushuang smiled faintly. I heard that you bought the Painting of Understanding Sword via Reincarnation left behind by real God Jiu He at a great price from the auction in Star Pavilion. It seems that you are planning to comprehend reincarnation doctrine in the future? Hall Master Yuan asked. Yes, Jian Wushuang nodded as he thought to himself. Hall Master Yuan had yet to find out that he was already a beginner in reincarnation doctrine. Reincarnation doctrine falls under the Supreme 4 doctrines. Compared to the other 9 heaven god doctrines, they are much more difficult. As you have already opted for that doctrine, you will have to work harder, Hall Master Yuan exhorted. Yes, Jian Wushuang nodded again. Alright, I shall cut the bullshit. The purpose of my visit is to assign you the ultimate disciple task. I mentioned to you 100 years ago that you should prepare yourself. Hall Master Yuan suddenly grew solemn. The ultimate disciple task is assigned to you by myself personally. It is divided into 3 parts. 3 parts. Jian Wushuang stunned. 3 parts of the task, and every task comes with a different reward. Among the tasks, one of the rewards is 1 million Chaos Gems, Hall Master Yuan said. Jian Wushuang's eyes beamed with joy. If it was during Star Pavilion, he wouldn't mind much about Chaos Gems. He probably wouldn't even be bothered if he had heard of the 1 million Chaos Gem then. But after the auction in Star Pavilion he had earned a debt of tens of millions in Star Pavilion. Completing the first part of the task happened to make him able to clear his debt. This is the first part of the task. It's in the token. When you complete the first part of the task, send me a message and I will tell you the second part of the task, Hall Master Yuan said. I understand, Jian Wushuang understood. The ultimate disciple task is no trivial matter. You have to be careful in your journey. Go ahead, Hall Master Yuan waved. Yes. Jian Wushuang immediately departed. After he left Lineage of Star, Jian Wushuang immediately read the details of the first part of the task. Boundless Void? Jian Wushuang looked surprised. Outside 10 cultivation sanctuaries, the Boundless Void was where bandits ran wild and massacres took place in extreme madness. It was the nightmare of many universe gods. Many experts from every region and holy kingdom of eternal chaotic world died in the Boundless Void before they managed to even step foot in 10 cultivation sanctuaries. When Jian Wushuang had come to 10 cultivation sanctuaries previously, he took the risk in the Boundless Void too. Now Jian Wushuang's first part of the task took place in the Boundless Void. The context of the task was for him to kill 11 bandits on the run in the Boundless Void. The 11 bandits were from Star Land. They had committed great offenses in Star Land and they couldn't return. Hence, they had decided to run amok in the Boundless Void. The bandits were all peak universe god in the third heaven, which was extremely powerful. After Jian Wushuang knew the context of the task, he immediately left Purple Moon sanctuaries through the wormhole on the island and came to the Boundless Void. 2 years later. Mr. That's Ancient Moon Island where Universe Zhu Xin stays. A person in a black robe stood politely next to Jian Wushuang. Jian Wushuang nodded while his gaze looked towards the end. There was a floating island. The surface area of the island wasn't huge, but there was a fierce aura that the island carried. Jian Wushuang needed to kill his first target, Universe God Zhu Xin. He was on the island then. Luckily Lineage of Star found the location of the 11 people long ago. Otherwise, if I were to have to search through the Boundless Void to find the 11 people it would be like finding a needle in a haystack, Jian Wushuang joked. Wait here, Jian Wushuang glared at the person in a black robe next to him. Mister, it is more than just Universe God Zhu Xin alone who is a bandit on Ancient Moon Island. There are a total of hundreds of universe gods. Among them there are 5 peak universe gods in the third heaven. If you were to barge in like this, it would... The person in a black robe creased his eyebrows but didn't finish his sentence. You want to say that I have overrated my abilities? Jian Wushuang smiled. The person in a black robe stiffened and revealed a humble expression. Just you watch, Jian Wushuang smiled and plunged towards Ancient Moon Island. When he got closer to Ancient Moon Island, his soul power spread and covered the entire island. He could see everything on Ancient Moon Island clearly. There's a total of 366 universe god on the island. Among them, there are 5 peak universe god in the third heaven, 31 universe gods at the rank of advanced and beginner. The remaining ones are universe gods in the first and second heaven. Jian Wushuang smiled faintly. Actually, the information was given in the description of the task that Hall Master Yuan gave. He was only confirming it. According to the information that Hall Master Yuan had provided him with, the 5 peak universe gods in the third heaven were merely ordinary peak universe gods in the third heaven. None of them possessed extraordinary fighting powers. I can wipe off such bandit force alone. There's no need for beating around the bush. Jian Wushuang smirked, then he appeared in the void above Ancient Moon Island. The moment he appeared, he formed a force using an enormous amount of divine aura to suppress the entire island. There was a sudden commotion on Ancient Moon Island. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. Swoosh, swoosh. There were many figures that plunged out of the buildings on the island and appeared in the void above. There were a few hundred of them and they were led by 5 people. How dare you behave atrociously on my Ancient Moon Island? A loud, raging voice reverberated through the void. The one who spoke was a middle-aged man with a beard and tan skin. The middle-aged man had a soaring, fierce aura and carried a huge axe on his back. The person was the strongest among the first peak universe god in the third heaven on Ancient Moon Island. At that moment, the bearded middle-aged man and the universe gods around him fixed their gazes on Jian Wushuang. These people's gazes were filled with murderous intention. Chapter 1433 Ancient Moon Island. Chapter 1433, Ancient Moon Island. Almost all the bandits were made up of universe gods and few were real gods. After all, real gods enjoyed a high status, so they don't need to be bandits. Under this circumstance, ancient Moon Island, which was home to 5 universe gods in the third heaven, was already a power in the universe. That was why they could occupy a whole floating island. But now Jian Wushuang had intruded into the island, so the bandits were naturally very angry. "Who are you?" The middle-aged man with a beard stared at Jian Wushuang. Jian Wushuang did not answer but took out a token, and his deep voice sounded all over the ancient Moon Island. "Universe Zhu Xian, 60,000 years ago, you were a guard in the Green Sea City. 300 years after that, you accompanied the Duke of the Green Sea City to explore, but because you coveted the treasure of the Duke, you joined the bandits, killed the rest 31 universe gods and fled here. Today, on behalf of the lineage of Star and the Green Sea City, I will give you the death penalty and carry it out immediately." As Jian Wushuang was speaking, he stared at a man in black in the crowd. He was Universe Zhu Xian, who Jian Wushuang had come for. "Sir, did you hear that? This guy comes for you and announces your death sentence. Should he execute it immediately?" A middle-aged man in the crowd laughed ironically. Universe Zhu Xian laughed too. He doesn't know what he is talking about. An ignorant, proud guy who brings himself trouble. The bandits beside them all laughed. They might fear a real god. But Jian Wushuang was obviously only a universe god in the third heaven. So what did they have to fear? "Boy, don't you understand? It's the ancient Moon Island here, a paradise for us bandits. It doesn't work here whether you represent the Green Sea Island or the lineage of Star. And you, only a universe god in the third heaven, dare to come here alone and sentence me to death? It's a joke. You'd better think about whether you can survive here on the island or not." The middle-aged man laughed wildly. "I only come for Universe Zhu Xian. You can continue to be bandits and do whatever you want, but if you don't, all the bandits here will die," Jian Wushuang said to the middle-aged man aggressively. Jian Wushuang didn't like the bandits wandering in the endless void. After all, he had almost died in the hands of these bandits several times when he first went to the 10 cultivation sanctuaries. Now, if these bandits dared to stand in the way, he would not hesitate to kill them. "Well, we all have to die. It's a joke. Do you think you're a real god or the strongest talent in your world? Even a strong man on the universe god ranking list dares not say so in front of us on my ancient Moon Island." The middle-aged man with a beard snorted. "Don't talk nonsense to this kid. Go ahead and kill him." Next to the middle-aged man, a universe god in the third heaven got impatient and started to attack Jian Wushuang. With his action, a large number of bandits directly rushed to Jian Wushuang in an instant. In a moment, Jian Wushuang's soul power burst out. Bang! With a piercing, hoarse sound, Jian Wushuang generated a scarlet, blood-colored phoenix, which comprised of his soul power and appeared in the heaven. This red phoenix was enormous. Once it formed, it spread its wings and plunged out with great power. When approaching the bandits, the power germs of the phoenix feathers turned into dozens of flashes of scarlet light. The flashes of light were so fast and went directly into the body of the bandits, who could not resist them at all. Without any sign, these bandits who had just been rushing crazily to Jian Wushuang were blocked by a mysterious power. The next moment, a large number of bandits all fell directly to the ground like raindrops without any sound. Under the attack of Jian Wushuang, only 9 bandits out of a 366-member group survived. These 9 people were all universe gods in the third heaven with great consciousness skills, 3 of which were even peak universe gods in the third heaven. At that moment, the 9 survivors were shocked. Consciousness attack. A powerful consciousness attack. They didn't look down at Jian Wushuang anymore. And Jian Wushuang remained calm. More than 300 bandits were all killed by a man out of the universe god ranking list? For Jian Wushuang, who was good at consciousness attacks, it was easy. In the eternal chaotic world, consciousness was known to be able to kill countless enemies. Because consciousness attacks could cover a large area at one time, and there was no way to block it. Talents extremely good at consciousness attack could kill all living creatures in a whole territory. And Jian Wushuang, after his god test, had greatly enhanced his power. With his great power, now he could easily deal with a group of universe gods in the second or third heaven with the Crimson Phoenix and the 5-beast soul manipulation knack. Now there were still 9 enemies. At that moment, Jian Wushuang took out his Blood Mountain sword, preparing for the next attack. Chapter 1434, Massacre. Chapter 1434, Massacre. Swoosh. Jian Wushuang's body and mind hovered like a ghost. What? Sword? The bearded middle-aged man, Universe God Zhu Xen, and the others were shocked. When they saw Jian Wushuang's techniques, they determined that Jian Wushuang was an expert with a terrifying consciousness attack. But then Jian Wushuang plunged forward with his sword. Be careful. The bearded middle-aged man suddenly roared. Jian Wushuang's ghostly figure had already appeared before the peak universe god in the third heaven who stood closest to him. Then Blood Mountain sword was wielded silently. So fast. The peak universe god in the third heaven was shocked. He quickly blocked with a long spear. Wah! The sword light fell down in silence. The swing wasn't of a high level, but Jian Wushuang performed it perfectly with his divine power. Most importantly, the swing contained a slight bit of power of reincarnation. Even though it was just a bit, it was the supreme power of Heaven Wei after all. That instant, the power of the sword increased by countless orders of magnitude. Dang! A low clashing noise was heard and the long spear flew off while the sword light continued to slash the body of the peak universe god in the third heaven without diminishing force. The peak universe god in the third heaven couldn't resist any further and was killed directly. Third. Bastard. The bearded middle-aged man and the others were caught by surprise. You killed our third, you have to die too. The bearded middle-aged man bellowed. Just as Jian Wushuang was wielding his sword like the third, the bearded middle-aged man, Universe God Zhu Xen, and the others launched their attack at Jian Wushuang. A few fierce strokes of force were charging at Jian Wushuang from all directions. At such a close distance, Jian Wushuang wouldn't be able to resist. Clank, 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 clank. There were noises of metal collision. The forces that the bearded middle-aged man and the few others made hit Jian Wushuang's body directly. For instance, the bearded middle-aged man's axe hit Jian Wushuang's head, but Jian Wushuang was covered by a layer of crimson armor. The attacks were weakened by the crimson armor before it transmitted through Jian Wushuang's divine body. It didn't manage to affect Jian Wushuang at all. Jian Wushuang continued to wield his sword. Xiaoyu. The cold sword technique was a unique skill that Jian Wushuang had created through the years he comprehended the painting of understanding sword via reincarnation. It was a peak rank 3 unique skill. The sword light approached at an unbelievably fast speed. How is this possible? The bearded middle-aged man stared while the cold sword light continued to magnify in his eyes. Pust! The sword light pierced through the bearded middle-aged man's skull and instantly killed him. That scene frightened the few other bandits. Run! Hurry up and run for your lives. Without hesitation, the few bandits started running. With a short exchange of blows, Jian Wushuang's power had made them terrified. They knew clearly that Jian Wushuang could easily kill them all. So, they could only run for their lives. Looking at the bandits running away, Jian Wushuang's gaze turned cold and aimed at Universe God Zhu Xen immediately. He then chased after him. Run, run. Universe God Zhu, she had terror plastered across his face. As he ran, he muttered continuously, too strong, too scary. An extremely strong consciousness attack. Just a few techniques and he almost wiped out all universe gods below the level of peak universe god in the third heaven. His swordsmanship is even scarier. Just a casual swing, but both the eldest and the third couldn't resist it. The scariest part is his defense power. We are 4 peak universe gods in the third heaven and an advanced universe god in the third heaven. Our full blows didn't affect him at all. Even if he's a real god, his defense power shouldn't be so strong, right? Universe God ranking list? Yes, he definitely has the fighting power of an expert on the Universe God ranking list. But why isn't he there on the Universe God ranking list? The bandits living in the boundless void had a certain level of understanding towards experts on the Universe God ranking list. They were certain that Jian Wushuang wasn't on the list, but the power he used wasn't any weaker than the experts on the Universe God ranking list. He's another hidden, infamous monster. Universe God Zhu Xen clenched his fists. Just then. Are you still thinking of running away? He heard a cold voice. He then saw a huge, blazing quicksand flowing towards him from the nearby void. Suddenly, Universe God Zhu Xen was covered by it. Along with the tremendous increase in Jian Wushuang's power, the blaze quicksand region naturally expanded too. Universe God Zhu Xen, a peak universe god in the third heaven, drowned in the eruption of blazing quicksand and his speed was weakened by half. But Jian Wushuang appeared behind Universe God Zhu Xin in an instant. No! Universe God Zhu Xin let out a shrill scream. Jian Wushuang slashed and it was like how he had killed Xieyu. The slash had carried a slight of power of reincarnation, but it oppressed Universe God Zhu Xin entirely. With one slash, Universe God Zhu Xin became a cold, dead body. The first target, eliminated. Jian Wushuang overlooked Universe God Zhu Xin's body, but his gaze was cold and without pity. As for the few bandits that had run away, Jian Wushuang didn't go after them. Come here. Jian Wushuang sent a message to the man in black who was waiting outside Ancient Moon Island. The man in black quickly arrived at Ancient Moon Island. The moment he arrived at Ancient Moon Island, he looked at the dead bodies all over and his face grew grave. He thought Jian Wushuang barging into Ancient Moon Island openly was an act of overrating his ability, but then he lives up to his name as a disciple of Star Palace from Lineage of Star. His power is impressive. I wonder how far away is he from the Universe God ranking list? The man in black thought to himself. This is the dead body of Universe God Zhu Xin, am I right? Jian Wushuang threw Universe God Zhu Xin's body before the man in black. The man in black looked for a while and nodded, yes. Alright, let's go to the second target then, Jian Wushuang spoke. Yes, the man in black nodded. Jian Wushuang and the man in black departed again after a simple clean-up. The rest of the time Jian Wushuang found one target after another under the lead of the man in black. Then Jian Wushuang had used the thunder trick to kill them. With Jian Wushuang's power, as long as he didn't come across any real gods, he could run wild in the boundless void. He had read through the 11 targets in his tasks long ago. They weren't hard to deal with. Jian Wushuang wiped out everyone and carried out massacres. In 30 years he finished his first part of the task, which was to kill all 11 targets. Plus, in the 30 years most of the time was spent simply traveling in the boundless void, while hardly any time was used for the actual executions. Chapter 1435, the second part of the task. Chapter 1435, the second part of the task. In 30 years he completed the first part of the task. When Hall Master Yuan received the news, he was shocked. Although the first part of the task was the simplest among the three, Hall Master Yuan thought Jian Wushuang could use some time and effort to complete it. After all, although the 11 targets were easy, most of them were among bandit groups. To kill them among the bandit groups wasn't that easy. Under normal circumstances, Jian Wushuang could first pretend to be a bandit and blend in with the bandit group. Then he could seize a chance to kill the target. But in the end it obviously wasn't carried out like that. This young man swept all the bandit groups with ferocious power one after another. It seems that after he passed through his inverse cultivation test, his power increased to be much greater than I'd imagined. Hall Master Yuan complimented and he then sent Jian Wushuang a message. Jian Wushuang, you've completed your first part of the task. The 1 billion Chaos Gems, I'll give them to you after you return to Lineage of Star. Now I'll assign you your second part of the task. Listen carefully. Jian Wushuang listened attentively. At the border of the boundless void, there was a huge piece of floating land called Floating City. In Floating City, there was a universe god named Su Hong waiting for your arrival. Your task is to escort the universe god across the boundless void into Purple Moon Sanctuary, Hallmaster said. Escorting? Jian Wushuang first stunned, then he creased his eyebrows. Only escorting across the boundless void? It's so simple? Simple? No, the second part of the task is far more difficult than the first. Plus, there is a very high reward for it. The reward for completion of your second part of the task is to stay in Real God Hall for 1 month, Hall Master Yuan said. Jian Wushuang beamed with joy. Real God Hall. It was the most precious land of opportunities in Lineage of Star. The reason that he could master a slight bit of power of reincarnation was due to Real God Hall. It was a pity that the terms to enter Real God Hall were too exacting. Even disciples of Star Palace would only have one chance to enter for free and could only stay for 1 month per visit. Then, the reward for the second part of the task was to enter Real God Hall again. The reward was much more precious than 1 billion Chaos Gems. With such an abundant reward, the difficulty of the task would definitely be far beyond the first part of the task. I'm only telling you the requirement of the task. As for the exact cause and reason, meet up with the owner of Floating City and Universe God Su Hong when you arrive at Floating City and they will clarify everything with you, Hall Master Yuan said. I understand, Jian Wushuang nodded. He cut off his communication with Hall Master Yuan. Then Jian Wushuang took out the map. Floating city, it's there. It's not that far from me. With my speed, I should be able to get there in 20 years. Jian Wushuang waved and a huge spaceship appeared from nowhere. Jian Wushuang got the spaceship from a peak universe god in the third heaven when he was completing the first part of his task. It was of a much higher level spaceship compared to his own. The travel speed was much faster too. Jian Wushuang drove the spaceship towards Floating City directly and he arrived at Floating City before the 20 years was up. Floating City was at the border of the boundless void. To be able to take up such a huge plot of floating land there showed that the owner of Floating City was a man with remarkable power. When Jian Wushuang arrived at the city owner's palace and met the owner of Floating City, Jian Wushuang understood. The owner of Floating City was a real god expert and he was extremely strong among real gods. Although he couldn't be compared with Lei Chao, who was an expert on the real god ranking list, he wasn't any weaker than the deacon elderlies in the lineage of Star. In a lofty hall. Disciple of Star Palace. A good-looking middle-aged man dressed in luxurious clothes, also the owner of Floating City, looked Jian Wushuang up and down. Well done. He hired a disciple of Star Palace from Lineage of Star. The ancestor of Su family is quite capable. Ancestor of Su family? Jian Wushuang looked confused. He came before he accepted the disciple task of Lineage of Star. As for the ancestor of Su family, he had no idea about it. I called Su Hong over. The owner of Floating City smiled faintly. Soon, a black-haired man in singlet walked into the hall. City owner. The black-haired man bowed politely at the owner of Floating City. Su Hong, the person who will escort you to Purple Moon Sanctuary is here. It's this person next to you, the owner of Floating City said. The black-haired man named Su Hong immediately turned to look at Jian Wushuang. Su Hong, greetings. I wonder what's your name, mister? Su Hong asked humbly. I'm Jian Wushuang. Jian Wushuang smiled. Jian Wushuang. Su Hong tried to think quickly in his head but he had never heard of Jian Wushuang's name. He then creased his eyebrows. Su Hong, you should be glad. Your ancestor at home thinks quite highly of you. He even paid an outstanding price to hire a disciple of Star Palace to escort you. The owner of Floating City smiled. Disciple of Star Palace? Su Hong had his eyes wide open and he immediately revealed a happy expression. He was originally from Purple Moon Sanctuary and he knew the overlord of Purple Moon Sanctuary, Lineage of Star. At the same time, he also knew just how impressive the disciple of Star Palace from Lineage of Star was. A universe god in the third heaven who was a disciple of Star Palace, was definitely one of the top among universe gods in the third heaven. City owner universe god Su Hong, although I received the escort mission, I have no idea what I might come across during the process of escorting. I don't think the issue is bandits that are wandering in the boundless void, right? Jian Wushuang asked. If it was just to deal with the bandits, there would be no need for you, a disciple of Star Palace, to come. The owner of Floating City smiled as he replied. He looked towards Su Hong and said, Su Hong, you should tell him. Yes, Su Hong nodded and started explaining. Mr. Jian Wushuang, to be frank with you, I am a descendant of the direct line of Su family in the land of fire and ice in Purple Moon Sanctuary. We, Su family, have been businessmen through generations. We have many properties in the land of fire and ice, and can be considered a force with decent power. However, among Su family, there is another hidden sect. The sect shares a different surname and is under the control of a person with different surname. They have been rather rampant recently and they have been trying to overwhelm the voice of the host. Especially when there was an accident not long ago, the head of the Su family passed away and there was no one among the direct line of descendants who was qualified to inherit the position. Hence, the ancestor of Su family selected me, who has been wandering outside to return to Purple Moon Sanctuary to inherit the position as the head of the Su family. So, the sect with the different surname naturally wouldn't let me return to the Su family after they found out about the news. Chapter 1436 Hong Ri Mercenary Group. Chapter 1436 Hong Ri Mercenary Group. In other words, not only would we encounter bandits in the boundless void, but we would also possibly meet the experts sent by the other sect that doesn't share the same surname, that intend to kill you? Jian Wushuang looked at Su Hong. Yes, Su Hong nodded. However, the sect under a different surname, also known as Chu sect, their core force is under the watch by us, the Su family. They can't send anyone over. The most that they can do is to hire some universe gods to kill me at a high price. I understand, Jian Wushuang nodded. When do we depart? Anytime, Su Hong said. If so, let's not delay any further. Let's go now, Jian Wushuang said. All right, Su Hong nodded and turned to look at the city owner of Floating City. Sorry for the trouble. Thank you. I'm friends with your old man and Su family. It's nothing. Don't mention it, the city owner of Floating City waved. Su Hong expressed his gratitude once again before leaving the hall with Jian Wushuang. The palace where the city owner of Floating City resided had a troop formed by a dozen people waiting there. When they saw Su Hong walk over, a brown-haired man who was supposedly the leader greeted, Su Hong, we have been here for a dozen years. When do we depart? Now. Immediately, Su Hong replied. Oh. The brown-haired man raised his eyebrows, then he noticed Jian Wushuang. He couldn't help but ask, who is he? He is a helping hand I called for. He will be escorting me to Purple Moon Sanctuary along with all of you, Su Hong smiled and replied. You found help. The brown-haired man's face changed. Su Hong, you don't trust us, the Hong Ri mercenary group. No, Su Hong shook his head as he denied. An extra person will give an extra guarantee. Don't worry, the commission won't be a penny less than what I promised. Then it's fine, the brown-haired man nodded and stole a glance at Jian Wushuang. Then he called his soldiers to get ready to depart. Jian Wushuang, excuse me, Su Hong looked at Jian Wushuang in embarrassment. These people are the mercenary soldiers that you hired? Jian Wushuang looked cold. Yes, Su Hong nodded and said, after I received my old man's message, I rushed over from Purple Moon Sanctuary. I have to thank Hong Ri Mercenary Group for the journey. The person earlier was the leader of Hong Ri Mercenary Group, Yu Gang. We have to pass through the Boundless Void soon. There are countless bandits in the Boundless Void. With Hong Ri Mercenary Group, at least the ordinary bandit groups won't dare to make trouble with us. Jian Wushuang understood. He knew about mercenary groups. The mercenary soldiers made their way through the dangerous place. They especially opted to do escorts or other dangerous missions in order to make a profit. Hong Ri Mercenary Group was complete and not too shabby in power. As they were wandering into the Boundless Void, having a powerful mercenary group around them would definitely save a lot of trouble. Very soon everything was ready. Let's go. Su Hong said, and the huge spaceship drove out from the floating city and towards the Boundless Void immediately. After the spaceship drove out, two figures gathered at the corner of Floating City. The mercenary group has finally departed. They stopped at Floating City for 10 years. I thought they'd never leave. It seems like they have to go through the Boundless Void anyway. They laughed as they chatted. Quick, inform the boss about this. Let our people keep an eye on this troop. This troop hired a complete mercenary group to escort. The owner of the troop should be quite significant. If we succeed, we will definitely gain bountiful harvest. This is a great deal. If boss were to find out, he would definitely be thrilled. In the Boundless Void, the huge spaceship was plunging forward. Even though there were some bandits sweeping out their consciousness occasionally during the journey, the moment the bandits looked clearly at the group formation, they ran away immediately. After all, this troop had a complete mercenary group. There were dozens of universe gods in the mercenary group. Among them, there were 12 who were universe god in the third heaven. There were even 4 peak universe gods in the third heaven. With such a mercenary group, no ordinary bandit would dare to provoke them. It was a rather quiet journey. On the deck of the spaceship, the universe gods and Hong Ri mercenary group gathered in small groups. Yu Gang was among them too. Leader, wasn't Mr. Su Hong alone all this while? Why is there another person with him out of a sudden? A universe god in the third heaven asked. He is someone Su Hong has specially requested help from. He said that he is going to escort him to Purple Moon Sanctuary with us, Yu Gang said calmly. Help? The surrounding universe gods and Hong Ri mercenary group creased their eyebrows. He already hired Hong Ri mercenary group, isn't that enough? He requested more help? Su Hong doesn't trust us? Don't forget that it had always been us Hong Ri mercenary group who escorted him here, one of the universe gods commented unhappily. Who knows? Anyway, he promised that the price that we agreed upon wouldn't be any less. That's enough. As for who else he asked help from, it has nothing to do with us. Yu Gang couldn't be bothered. True, the universe gods understood. Oh yeah, leader, what's the name of the person Su Hong hired? Someone asked again. I think it's Jianghu, Yu Gang replied. Jianghu humph, I can tell it's an alias. He doesn't even use his real name. I don't think he should be that powerful. He must be much weaker than our leader. That's for sure. Our leader is at least a genius from a holy kingdom. He's not a person that some random person like that could be compared to favorably. I wonder what Su Hong was thinking. If he were to hire someone on the Universe God ranking list, it would be fine, but he hired someone that we have never heard of. I heard he paid a huge price. TSK. He might as well give it to us so we can go all out with our work. The people from Hong Ri mercenary group sneered and chatted. In the cabin, Jian Wushuang was sitting opposite Su Hong. There was wine on the table before them. Jian Wushuang, you heard the conversation outside, right? Su Hong looked at Jian Wushuang. Jian Wushuang nodded. Actually, the moment you announce your identity as a disciple of Star Palace, none of these people will dare to make such comments. Su Hong smiled and said. It's not necessary, Jian Wushuang was cold. They can speak as they wish and think as they wish. It has nothing to do with me. My task is to escort you to Purple Moon Sanctuary. That's all I want. Plus, it is better to not announce my identity in order to ensure your safety. Chapter 1437 Hei Longshan. Chapter 1437, Hei Longshan. For my safety? What do you mean? Su Hong looked doubtful. You have stayed in the floating city for a total of 10 years' time with Hong Ri Mercenary Group, and if I'm not mistaken, Hong Ri Mercenary Group should have recruited some new members in the past 10 years. Am I right? Jian Wushuang asked. Yes, Su Hong nodded. Hong Ri Mercenary Group escorted me to Floating City and they encountered danger too and lost some men. Hence, during the 10 years we stopped at Floating City they recruited more men. Not many, about 10 of them. Exactly. Jian Wushuang said coldly. The boundless void was huge. Finding the existence of our troop in the boundless void is like looking for a needle in a haystack. If I were to be an expert from the Chu sect and Su family, I'd definitely keep an eye on you since you arrived at Floating City. I would also assign experts to blend into your troop. Then even when you're in the boundless void, the expert that Chu sect sent would be able to find you easily and kill you. What? Su Hong was shocked. You mean there's a possibility that the expert that Chu sect sent is among the people in Hong Ri Mercenary Group? Not possibly. Definitely, Jian Wushuang stole a glance at Su Hong. That's also why my identity and power naturally should be kept secret. Then, when the expert that Chu sect sent appears, I can at least take the initiative. Hearing what Jian Wushuang had said, Su Hong's face grew grave. Jian Wushuang, according to what you said, the expert that Chu sect sent could interrupt and kill us at any time. Aren't we in danger? Exactly. But you shouldn't be worried. My task is to escort you to Purple Moon Sanctuary safely. Before you arrive in Purple Moon Sanctuary, I won't let anyone hurt you, Jian Wushuang said. Su Hong looked at Jian Wushuang and recalled his identity. He then nodded heavily. There was a disciple of Star Palace escorting him personally. He felt at ease. The spaceship continued to plunge forward in the boundless void. That very moment, a far distance from the spaceship, there were countless figures standing in the vast void. These people were universe gods. The one leading was a bald man carrying a saber on his back. Although the bald man was just a peak universe god in the third heaven, his aura was much fiercer than anyone of the same level. Mu Tao, this should be the first time you're out for a hunt after you joined Hei Longshan, right? The bald man looked at the purple-haired young man who was pale. Yes, the purple-haired young man nodded faintly. Hei Longshan is different from the ancient moon island that you were at. If we were to take action later, you'd better watch closely and learn. Then, you might have a chance to take the position to be head. The bald man smiled widely. Yes, the purple-haired young man nodded again. The purple-haired young man was peak universe god in the third heaven who just joined Hei Longshan. Before that, the purple-haired young man was one of the heads in ancient moon island. Unfortunately, ancient moon island was destroyed not long ago. Oh yeah, I'm curious, the bald man spoke again. Although ancient Moon Island couldn't be compared with Hei Longshan, you're one of the strong forces among bandit groups in the boundless void. Who was the one who destroyed all of you? Could it really be a real god expert that took action? Not a real god, merely a peak universe god in the third heaven. However, the peak universe god in the third heaven is definitely one of the scariest universe gods that I've ever seen. Mu Tao said as his face filled with unconcealed terror. Oh. The bald man raised his eyebrows but didn't ask further. Just then, "Boss, the prey is here." A message was sent and the bald man beamed with joy when he received the message. "Haha, everyone follow me." As the bald man laughed maliciously, the crowded figures plunged forward to the void before them. On the huge spaceship, Universe Gods of Hong Ri Mercenary Group were still chatting when Jian Shuang, who was sitting in the cabin with his eyes closed, suddenly opened his eyes. "What happened?" Su Hong looked at Jian Shuang. "Someone is coming. Many people," Jian Shuang said calmly. His soul power could sense a large amount of aura approaching. "Many?" Su Hong's face grew grave. Would they be the experts that Chu sect sent? They reached us so quickly? Not sure if they are experts that were sent or bandits that are in the boundless void. In short, they have no good intentions, Jian Shuang said. Su Hong's face grew solemn and he immediately got out from the cabin. Group leader Yu Gang. Su Hong came before Yu Gang and said, "Quick, be prepared. There's an incoming enemy." "Incoming enemy? Where? Why don't I see them?" Yu Gang immediately looked out at the void. He spread his consciousness but he couldn't sense any figures. Universe Gods and Hong Ri Mercenary Group looked confused too. "This?" Su Hong creased his eyebrows. He didn't see anyone outside too. "Su Hong, are you getting too nervous?" Yu Gang joked. No. Jianku said it, Su Hong explained. "Him?" Yu Gang sneered. "We at the decks didn't even see any shadows of the incoming enemy. How could he know from the cabin? Don't listen to his nonsense." But, Su Hong wanted to say something. Virum. Suddenly, there was a crowd of darkness approaching from the void far away. They were churning forward like a dark cloud. Then everyone on the spaceship noticed. There's really someone? Many, so many of them, and they're all universe gods. This is... Then the members of Hong Ri Mercenary Group looked terrified. There were too many of them. There was at least 2,000 of them when they looked over the crowd. The aura of the 2,000 people was strong. None of them was lower than a universe god. Among the dark clouds, there were hundreds of universe gods in the third heaven with stronger auras. There were even 18 peak universe gods in the third heaven. It was a terrifying formation. The dark cloud was obviously coming at them. Very soon they stopped before the spaceship. There was a formation with a total of 2,000 universe gods blocking before the spaceship, which blocked their way. There were a few thousand gazes looking at the spaceship. The members of Hong Ri Mercenary Group saw the scene outside the spaceship and they gulped. There was a tinge of fear from the bottom of their hearts. Even the group leader of Hong Ri Mercenary Group, Yu Gang, looked rather distressed. Chapter 1438 Hunt. Chapter 1438 Hunt. Leader, what should we do? The people in Hong Ri Mercenary Group were terrified. What's there to panic about? Stay calm. Yu Gang bellowed as he took a step forward. His bright, loud voice traveled well. I am from Hong Ri Mercenary Group, Yu Gang. I wonder who you are and whether you could show us some consideration and let us pass? The voice transmitted through the spaceship to the outer void, then to the crowd. Hong Ri Mercenary Group. The leader of the crowd was a bald man. He scoffed, You're only some random mercenary group. How are you qualified to ask me, Hei Longshan, to show consideration? Hei Longshan. He's really Hei Longshan? On the spaceship there was a commotion. Hong Ri Mercenary Group often traveled back and forth in the boundless void. They were familiar with bandit forces that were extremely strong. In the boundless void there were 4 strongest bandit forces. Hei Longshan was one of them. It was said that Hei Longshan had more than 10,000 universe gods. Among them were hundreds of universe gods in the third heaven. Over the years, they had been moving about in the boundless void and they definitely deserved their titles as overlords in the boundless void. Hong Ri Mercenary Group had heard of the name Hei Longshan long ago, but they had never crossed paths before. It was their first time. After finding out their enemy's identity, Yu Gang knew that it would definitely be impossible for their troops to slip past Hei Longshan in peace. We, Hong Ri Mercenary Group, are willing to pay 5 million Chaos Gems as toll fee. I hope that you will all let us through, Yu Gang offered. 5 million Chaos Gems wasn't a small figure. After all, an ordinary universe god's entire wealth would only be about 40 to 50 million Chaos Gems. Haha, 5 million Chaos Gems? You're trying to dismiss us? Listen up. If you, Hongri Mercenary Group, really want to buy your way out, at least show some sincerity. 50 million Chaos Gems, no less. Otherwise, you will become souls of the deceased by Hei Longshan's hands. The bald man shouted. 50 million? Yu Gang and the Universe Gods and Hongri Mercenary Group grew grave. A real god would only have 40 million. Now he's asking for 50 million Chaos Gems as a toll fee? He's demanding an exorbitant price. Yu Gang sounded cold as he looked around. Turn around. With the speed of our ship, Hei Longshan might not be able to catch up with us. Virum. The huge spaceship immediately turned in another direction. He didn't bother with the experts from Hei Longshan before him, but opted to plunge forward through the void by the side. Looking at the sight, the bald man smirked but didn't chase. After the spaceship had traveled forward in a different direction for a while, he realized that at the end of their trajectory was an enormous amount of experts surging forward too. Not only that, in the other two directions, there were also huge numbers of figures. From all directions there were shadows. In addition to the 2,000 people that they saw, there was at least 10,000s of Universe God. What? Yu Gang's face grew grave. Everyone in Hongri Mercenary Group was terrified too. Hei Longshan, this is Hei Longshan. Yu Gang quivered in fear. The leader of Hei Longshan, the bald man, appeared once again before the spaceship. His malicious laugh was heard ringing out. Ha, you're trying to run away? We Hei Longshan had been eyeing your troop when you were in Floating City. Why would we give you a chance to flee? What should we do? Leader, what do we do? The Universe Gods and Hongri Mercenary Group looked terrified. Yu Gang looked cold as he spoke with a deep voice. I paid a great price to get this spaceship. The structure of the spaceship is extremely solid. Although there are many Universe Gods in Hei Longshan, it isn't that easy to break through the spaceship. We can rely on the structure and force our way out. Run. Yu Gang made a decision and there was a ray of light that exploded. The very next moment, the faint purple film at the border of the spaceship shined out brilliant rays of purple light. Then, the spaceship suddenly traveled at a terrifyingly fast speed and plunged towards the crowd ferociously. They're asking for death. The leader of Hei Longshan, the bald man, saw the scene and he burnt with rage. He waved and commanded, God Slayer guards, prepare yourselves. Behind the bald man were a dozen figures standing in line and holding on to a pitch-black bow that gave out an extermination aura. The bows were controlled by Universe Gods in the third heaven. Along with the stretch of the bowstring, the extermination aura shook the universe. This is. The people in Hongri Mercenary Group noticed the existence of the extermination aura. It's God Slayer bow, God Slayer bow. Damn it. Hei Longshan is just a bandit force, how could they have so many God Slayer bows? Yu Gang's face grew grave. The God Slayer bow was famous in 10 cultivation sanctuaries. Some extremely strong forces would build a soldier troop equipped with God Slayer bow. The fighting power of the troop would also be very terrifying. But then Hei Longshan was just a bandit force. How could he form a troop with a dozen God Slayer guards? Humph, Hei Longshan has been called an overlord in the void for so many years. We are not just a name, the bald man smiled savagely. Swoosh, 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 swoosh. Along with the arrows that the God Slayer guards shot, dozens of extermination lights shot towards the spaceship. The dozens of lights hit the heavy-duty structure of the spaceship simultaneously. The spaceship was really solid, so although it shook, it withstood the attack. They resisted the attack? Humph, do it once more. The bald man's voice was cold. The dozens of God Slayer guards pulled their bows once again and there were dozens of exterminating auras that gathered again. We're doomed. On the spaceship, the Universe Gods and Hongri Mercenary Group, including Yu Gang, went as pale as a sheet. In the cabin, Su Hong, who stood in front of Jian Wushuang, became nervous too. Jian Wushuang still looked rather cold. His soul power was spreading over the area and he could see the situation outside clearly. At first, I wanted to wait until the expert from Chu sect revealed himself before I take action, but it seems like I will have to take action ahead of schedule. Jian Wushuang squinted. The next moment he appeared on the deck of the spaceship. That very moment, the God Slayer guards shot their arrows for the second time and were already flying towards the spaceship. Jian Wushuang didn't hesitate anymore when he saw the scene. He held his Blood Mountain sword and took a huge stride to appear outside of the spaceship. He stood right before the exterminating arrows. Chapter 1439, The 10 Kings. Chapter 1439, The 10 Kings. Swoosh, 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 swoosh. There was a total of 10 destroying lights spurting over. Jian Wushuang looked calm. He wielded his blood mountain sword and there was a sudden eruption of terrifying divine power. Rumble. The boundless divine power with the slight bit of power of reincarnation that Jian Wushuang had comprehended instantly substantiated and formed a huge, lofty mountain before Jian Wushuang. The mountain was a few hundred zhang long. It blocked Jian Wushuang himself and the spaceship behind him entirely. Those destroying lights spurted over and hit on the lofty mountain. In an instant, the mountain shattered and crumbled, but the power of the destroying lights dispersed as well. What? The head of Hei Longshan's face grew grave. On the spaceship, the universe gods and Hongri mercenary group were delighted as they escaped from the disaster. At the same time they looked at Jian Wushuang who was outside the spaceship. It's Jianghu. It's the helper that Mr. Su Hong hired. He blocked the God Slayer Guard's arrows for us. The universe gods and Hongri mercenary group were shocked. There was a flash of murderous intention in Jian Wushuang's eyes and his ghostly figure plunged. The scene shocked all the universe gods from Hei Longshan. Hei Longshan was made of tens of thousands of universe gods. The universe god in the third heaven before their eyes had charged towards them alone. I wonder where this idiot came from. Kill him. The bald man roared. Among the crowd from Hei Longshan, there was a large cloud of figures that charged towards Jian Wushuang. Humph. Jian Wushuang humphed and his soul power swept out and instantly became a huge crimson phoenix. The crimson phoenix wailed and its feathers turned into flowing light as it plundered. Without any hindrance, they immersed into the bodies of the experts from Hei Longshan. In silence, a few hundred figures fell directly. The scene shocked all universe gods from Hei Longshan, as well as from Hongri mercenary group. In Hei Longshan camp, the purple-haired young man Mu Tao, who stood next to the bald man, stared. The scene before his eyes was too familiar. Back then he had seen the exact scene on ancient Moon Island. Exactly the same. Not only was the outcome the same, the movement and pattern was the same too. Mu Tao's eyes were locked dead on the ghostly figure in the void before. He saw clearly. He finally saw the face of the ghostly figure clearly. In that instant, Mu Tao was frightened out of his wits. It's him? It's really him. Mu Tao stared with his wide-open eyes and his face was filled with terror and fear. He would never forget the scene on ancient Moon Island. He would also never forget the person who swept out of ancient Moon Island alone. Run, hurry up and run. Mu Tao muttered. His voice was extremely soft as though he had no strength. The bald man next to him heard his voice and he looked over. Mu Tao, what are you talking about? It's him, the demon. Mu Tao muttered. Demon? The bald man's face grew grave but immediately responded, would this be the universe god who destroyed ancient Moon Island? Mu Tao didn't reply but the bald man got his answer through his expression. I see. No wonder he could destroy ancient Moon Island alone. It turned out that he was an expert who was good at consciousness attacks. Before an expert who was good at consciousness attacks, the amount wouldn't matter. The bald man squinted his eyes, then he smiled coldly. It's a pity that we Hei Longshan is different from ancient Moon Island. 10 kings, come and kill this boy for me. Swoosh, 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 swoosh. 10 piercing noises were suddenly heard. Among the crowd there were 10 figures that plunged forward. The 10 of them were wearing bronze armor and they had soaring murderous intentions. They stood in a line before Jian Wushuang as their boundless auras pressured Jian Wushuang. It's the 10 kings. The 10 kings are launching attacks all together. This boy is going to die. The universe gods from Hei Longshan saw the 10 figures and there was immediately a commotion being stirred up among the crowd. The 10 kings were second to the few heads of Hei Longshan. The 10 of them were peak universe gods in the third heaven who were extremely powerful and the head of Hei Longshan had paid a huge price to build them up. The divine weapons that they were using and the armor that they were wearing were outstanding. The 10 of them had even cultivated a war formation especially to join their forces to fight against their enemy. With the 10 of them joining forces besides the experts on universe god ranking list, there shouldn't be any other universe god who could win against them. Die. The 10 kings were extremely quick to action. They appeared before Jian Wushuang instantly. Then there were attacks from all directions that landed on Jian Wushuang one after another. Jian Wushuang looked calm and composed while he wielded his Blood Mountain sword with a light bit of power of transformation. Dang, 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 dang. The 10 attacks were blocked by Jian Wushuang, and Jian Wushuang merely took one step back. Then Blood Mountain sword slid through the void like a snack and hit the body of 2 kings. The 2 kings were protected by the bronze armor, but they flew backwards when they were hit by the sword light. Ha! He could easily block our attacks and instantly counterattack. This boy has strong swordsmanship. One-on-one, none of us is his match. Let's use war formation. The 10 kings discussed and reached a mutual attack style. Hong! A terrifying aura soared up. A demonic dragon knight who was 100 zhang tall and covered under bronze armor appeared in the void. The demonic dragon knight had soaring murderous intention that struck fear into the surrounding people. Formation. Jian Wushuang looked. He knew about war formation long ago when he was in Greenfire World. He knew the advantage of the war formation. Although the individual power of the 10 kings wasn't strong, when the 10 of them joined forces and moved into a war formation, it brought significant pressure to Jian Wushuang. Interesting. Jian Wushuang smiled, and in the next moment, his figure suddenly magnified and became 100 zhang tall too. His body gave out a dark gold luster, and there were 5 four-angled stars in between his eyebrows, which were shimmering. Come on. Jian Wushuang laughed, and his huge divine god body took a huge stride forward. Then, Blood Mountain sword in his hand that had increased in size too gave out terrifying power. The demonic dragon rider shook, and the demonic dragon let out a shrill roar. Suddenly, the 2 huge figures collided together. Chapter 1440, Whoever blocks me will die. Chapter 1440, Whoever blocks me will die. Bang, 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 bang. Shockingly loud thunder could be heard on the horizon. Along with the thunder, there was a savage power that swept over from all directions. Suddenly the earth shattered. The surrounding spectators were terrified. Humph! I paid a great price to nurture the 10 kings. Not only are they powerful, but when they are united in a formation, besides experts on Universe God ranking list, no one else will be evenly matched. Although he is strong, he is dreaming of being able to fight evenly with the 10 kings, the leader of Hei Longshan, the bald man, said. As he spoke, the huge demonic dragon suddenly let out a raging roar. Then, it wielded the long spear in its hand, and suddenly a boundless flame that covered the entire universe spurted out. The flame formed into demonic dragon knights, and they charged towards Jian Wushuang. Suddenly Jian Wushuang was in a fix. Looking at the scene, universe gods and Hei Longshan suddenly looked delighted. Only Mu Tao wasn't. Ever since Mu Tao had seen Jian Wushuang, there was only fear in his eyes. When he saw Jian Wushuang in a pinch, he shook his head. It's useless. It can't stop him. No one can stop this demon. He knew well how scary Jian Wushuang was. Back then when he was on Ancient Moon Island, not only had Jian Wushuang performed terrifyingly great swordsmanship and a scary consciousness attack, the thing that had made them hopeless was his unbelievable power of defense. Back then, when a few peak universe gods launched a full attack and hit Jian Wushuang's body directly, it didn't affect Jian Wushuang at all. That was the scariest part about Jian Wushuang. With such a terrifying divine body, he was destined to not fail. As expected, on the battlefield, even though he was facing the attack of demonic knights and in a pinch, his aura wasn't weakened at all. On the contrary, he grew even stronger. I don't want to waste any more time on you. A cold voice was heard from Jian Wushuang's mouth. In Jian Wushuang's eyes was a chilly gleam. There was also a significant crimson light erupting from the Blood Mountain sword in his hand. Reincarnation sword principle. The bleeding technique. Rumble. A terrifying crimson light suddenly erupted, the entire vast void suddenly drowned in a crimson ocean. In the crimson ocean, a ray of sword light penetrated the void and slashed at the demonic knight. There was a sudden explosion of power of reincarnation. The demonic knight too immediately resisted with the long spear. However, it collided with the crimson light. Pust. The spear was broken into 2 directly. The crimson sword light wasn't hindered but plunged at the body of the demonic knight. That very moment, the entire universe went quiet. The demonic knight collapsed immediately and fell apart. The 10 kings in it were revealed. The 10 kings looked terrified. They had never expected that when the 10 of them united to transform into a demonic knight with formation, they would be defeated by a universe god. Just then Jian Wushuang suddenly showed a flash of murderous instinct. Reincarnation sword principle. Bleed to the end of the world. Wah! A shrill, crimson sword light filled the air. In the dark void, it was like riding a crimson yet tragic and soul-stirring route to the end of the world. It looked extremely eye-catching. The route to the end of the world passed before the 10 kings. The 10 kings' eyes were wide open as their heads were chopped off. With that one swung, the famous 10 kings in Hei Longshan lost their lives in an instant. So impressive. The tens of thousands of universe gods in the surrounding void were in a sudden, unprecedented shock. Jian Wushuang was murderous. After he had killed the 10 kings, his gaze was redirected to the leader of Hei Longshan, the bald man. Before shooting the rider, one should shoot the horse first. Before capturing the thief, one should capture the king first. There was coldness in Jian Wushuang's eyes. The next moment, his figure moved and charged towards the bald man. Shit. The bald man felt Jian Wushuang's intention to kill, his face grew grave. Although he was the leader of Hei Longshan and he was the number one among all bandits in Hei Longshan, he knew clearly that when the 10 kings united, they could oppress him easily even if they didn't perform a formation. However, Jian Wushuang had defeated the 10 kings' demonic dragon knight in an instant and killed all 10 of them. He was such a terrifying existence. How could he be his match? Quick, hurry and block him for me. The bald man roared and commanded the surrounding bandits to block Jian Wushuang while he ran towards the void behind. Trying to run away? Jian Wushuang sneered as a vast soul power stirred. Virum. Without performing a 5-beast manipulation knack, without performing Crimson Phoenix, with mere soul power, he swept out and covered the void before him, then started suppressing with soul power. The terrifying soul power pierced into the surrounding universe god's head like a thorn instantly. Suddenly la. Like raindrops, more than 1,000 universe gods' corpses fell down before Jian Wushuang. Before Jian Wushuang there was immediately a broad rout. Another boundless soul power swept out. Jian Wushuang performed the secret skill of Tian Yuan directly. The first technique in secret skill of Tian Yuan, inextinguishable light. A silent soul light caught up to the bald man at an incredibly fast speed and was absorbed into his body. Ah! The bald man cried out. His body stopped and his hands were on his head as he screamed in pain. The bald man was a true peak universe god in the third heaven after all. With Jian Wushuang's current soul strength, performing inextinguishable light would at most make him feel pain and affect his movement. However, it wouldn't be possible if Jian Wushuang intended to kill the bald man with inextinguishable light. The moment the bald man stopped, Jian Wushuang immediately appeared behind him. He swung out a sword light and the bald man's head flew off. Jian Wushuang lifted his hand to catch the bald man's skull. In the void, Jian Wushuang held his sword in one hand and held the bald man's head in the other. He looked around at the Hei Longshan experts surrounding him. He exerted strength in his palm and the bald man's head exploded in his head. Then Jian Wushuang spoke in a cold voice. Whoever blocks me, will die. You're tuning in to the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.